First of all, I am absolutely honored to have T.S. Dixon in the house. T.S., welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me Show. You've been on virtually, but this is the first time actually in studio. Welcome.
Thanks, Matt. I love the new studio. It's beautiful, and I'm very honored to be the first podcast guest in your new studio.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were the first one to take the plunge. So for the people who don't know you and didn't have a chance to watch the 20K show and haven't had a chance to pick up the Woke Mind Viruses, which is cleverly placed right over the middle of us. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about the book and give people the vanilla before we get into the deep stuff.
Yeah, so I'm a conservative analyst and author. This is my first book, The Woke Mind Viruses, and I was motivated to produce this book and put it out and promote it. And I'm in the promotional cycle of it right now, just to get this message out, to get the word out, because I just feel strongly that we're in very important, dire political times. And I felt like this message needed to get out. We're getting a lot of converts. We're getting a lot of people waking up, realizing that something's not right, something's going on. They're not sure what it is. And a lot of people are coming over to our side. But then the process of educating those people and equipping them with information, facts, intelligence, so that they can then make great decisions and figure out how they fit into the political process is a whole nother ballgame. And so what I feel like I've done here with this book is produce something that can catch people up to speed that might take someone 10, 15, 20 years researching on their own. I can fast track them and in one weekend read, bring them up from how we got here, what happened and where do we go from here? What are our countermeasures?
When I was perusing the indices, how many and we were on the phone together, I was looking at the amount of references you used for the book, and it blew me away. Very rarely do people, in my opinion, spend more time researching than they do writing. And that's one of the conundrums that we find, people doing onion surface level type books and not really going into it full force. How many points of research did you have when writing this book?
I think the end count came somewhere like 880 references at the end of the day. But it was a labor of passion, because I've been fascinated by these topics and by these different movements for 20 some years. So I've been researching them on my own as just a hobbyist, avid researcher, which I started at university. And so this is just something I habitually do. I enjoy. And then my wife kept telling me I needed to put something together. I started writing a different book, and somehow in the process of that creative method, this book emerged.
What were you working on besides this?
It was similar to this, but it had other, I don't know, other dimensions. No, I knew I wanted to write something in this vein for this purpose, right? But it was a totally different book, and then this book sort of came out of that, because I did a lot of it. I recorded a lot of it just extemporaneously, and then I transcribed it, and then I'd go in and edit it. And so through that process, this book emerged. And what's funny is I was a writer, moonlighting as a writer in my 20s, and then in my 30s, I didn't put anything out. But every year I would try to write a book, and I'd put a manuscript together.
Right.
I'd go back and read it. I'd hate it. So I'd throw it in the garbage can for a decade. And then when I wrote this, I put the manuscript away, came back a couple months later, and I loved it.
Right.
And it felt like I was reading somebody else's work. And then the more I edited it, the more I loved it.
Do you preview your writing, or do you kind of just like set it and forget it and let editor take it away when you get into that phase? Or do you like, the reason I asked the question is I'm built that way. So I'll create something and then I critique it incessantly and tweak it until it's right. And sometimes, like you say, especially when you're 20 to 30, that's a very large gap where you change your mentality between those ages more than so far any time in my life. So
yeah,
I'll probably throw something away after I tweak and peak it. But do you do that from you as T.S. Dixon, or do you look at it from an editorial perspective and just get the I's and the T's crossed?
Well, I try to divorce myself from it once I do the first pass. And then, I use beta readers. So I'll give it to a trusted circle of readers.
Right.
I'll take their notes into consideration. And then once enough time has passed, I'll come back to it, and I try to look at it with fresh eyes as if I'm not the person that wrote it, and then attack it, attack it in every way I can.
What's the biggest challenge with that when you're doing it?
For me, the biggest challenge is revulsion. When you do a lot of writing, it's very personal. It's sort of like taking parts of your psyche and externalizing them out into the world, embodying them, and then sometimes you don't like what you see, or you don't like how it strikes you.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the author, it can be very visceral. And so that was my biggest challenge. And then somehow with this, it was a whole different story. And it almost felt like I didn't write it, but I love it. And I'm very proud of it. And I was happy to put it out. We did a lot of work on the editing and just preparing it. And it's been doing really well.
Yeah, well, it certainly has. The listeners who follow the show seem to love it. Everyone I've turned it on to seem to love it. Leroy is probably going to take up the whole interview tonight because he's so excited to talk to you. Speaking of it being visceral, it's interesting. The book itself doesn't have a lot of emotional platitudes. It tends to stay fairly even keeled.
Yeah.
It's not an encyclopedia of information. It's just well thought out, well structured, all in one place, which puts the lines of delineation to start the chapter, explain it, and then end it, and then have it move on to next. But I also found it was fairly cathartic. At the end, I felt like I had gained something.
Yeah.
Out of reading it. And it wasn't just education, but it was like, okay, I kind of see where the forest of the trees. I see how I should kind of perceive things differently than maybe even I didn't understand, because the whole awake versus woke thing, I think is a cliche, but it's fairly palpable when you do start seeing all of the connections and go, wait a second, how did I miss this? This was so obvious. Can you talk a little bit about that? How did you take yourself from the emotional piece out of it? Stay factual, but still have that cathartic reaction that I described.
Well, I had a goal. I wanted to not just educate people, but equip people. And I know that people have been conditioned. We have social engineers that have sort of guided our education system and our media and our arts. And so a lot of the information people have is very contained or withheld, or it's misdirected, or it's false. And so in doing this, it's almost a work that is meant to deprogram you if you've come up through the traditional system. And so it's doing that by presenting you with facts and truth. And it's not written to be academic. It's not written for scholars and professors and the academic crowd. It's written for
They wouldn't read it anyway.
Yeah, and really, there's all these false arguments that happen in left versus right politics. And I didn't want to engage in any of the nonsense and the false arguments. I think it's a waste of time.
Right.
So what I did was I just went to the truth. I just went to the point of origin, and I went to the actual motives, agendas, and belief systems. And I just wanted to create a framework, a simple framework that's easy to understand, because this stuff all is easy to understand. When a lot of these writers are so thick and dense when they write their material,
right,
and they meander and they use this complex language that's difficult to penetrate and get to, like, what are they really saying? What do they really mean? What do they really believe? But at the end of the day, once you distill it all down, it's very simple. They're taking something very simple and very shallow and making it seem very deep.
Right.
So I reverse engineered that, and I give you the plain facts about this is who they really are, this is what they actually believe, and this is what the consequences of those beliefs are, and these are their tactics. And in doing that, I identified, there's many groups, many factions that make up the coalition of the left as well as the right.
Uh-huh.
But I couldn't tell the story of every little group and the neocons and these guys. So I boiled it down to the four main groups that spearhead the leftist movement, and that's the liberals, their history, the leftists, the globalists, and then the new woke phenomenon. And I wanted to get right to it and give people the answers.
Yeah. Do you think the person who started writing at that age of 20 could have even encroached upon this level of writing now? Do you think it's based upon time, experiential learning, patience? Or what is it, do you think, that person back then didn't have that you have now?
Oh, just specifically me?
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. I think in my 20s, I was more doing fiction.
What
And,
type?
all types. I was interested in a lot of different genres. I was doing science fiction. I did some fantasy work. I did some action,
Okay, now I got it.
thriller.
This is what we did on the phone. A fantasy writer. Who's your go-to? Who does the best work?
Like Tolkien, and
Yeah.
he's the primo guy.
Yep.
But I was always absorbed in books as a child in elementary school. So Crichton was my favorite, and then Stephen King and others.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so that was the fiction piece. If you haven't picked up Feist, Raymond E. Feist, the Magician series, just it makes Tolkien look like Pee Wee Herman on a typewriter. It's pretty good. All right, so you were talking about how you started working with different forms of content, but what was the big thing that you look back on at that younger version of yourself versus now, where maybe you probably could not probably, but you couldn't write this level of book back then,
yeah.
but you can write it now.
Well, it's 24 years of research.
Sure.
And then what you're really doing, and this is the problem I have with the conservative movement. When you come over and you get involved, then you're putting a puzzle together.
Sure.
Because there's so much social engineering and so much information withholding that's taking place in our society,
Right.
that it's very mysterious.
It is.
And then you're fed with all of these misdirections, you're fed with all of these false arguments, and so it's like a whirlwind meant to confuse you. And so if you're really curious about what's really going on and why things are happening, then it's up to you to be digging, researching and judging and parsing all these different forms of independent media, going and doing all of this research, going down all these rabbit holes and trying to piece it all together. And I ask a lot of really knowledgeable, enthusiastic conservatives and populists, however people define themselves on the right, how long did it take you to put the picture together, to understand the globalists, the deep state, the whole thing, the structure? And
You're like, huh?
yeah, well, the people that have put that together, it took them usually around 15 to 25 years. For me, it took at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that's not fair. Why is that? Well, it's all withheld, sort of like financial education.
Sure.
From the middle classes and upper middle class and down, it's all withheld from us in the system.
Right.
For a reason, right? So that we don't inherit the upper class ranks of the societal order. And so this is also withheld. So I thought, well, why don't I just reverse that? Why don't I take all this information and knowledge and history that the few have, and why don't I just give it to the many? And why don't I make it so simple and boiled down, a fifth grader could understand it and comprehend it? And instead of taking 15, 20, 25 years to piece it, let's look at Trump. Okay. Trump was politically active for 50 years when he was elected his first term, because he was in New York, a businessman. He's donating. He's involved in New York politics. He's interested in federal politics. So 50 years, he's sort of involved, understanding that process. Yeah. He gets into office, elected as president. Did not understand the deep state.
Right.
Did not understand the globalist cabal.
Correct.
Did not understand the amount of fraud. He was sort of naive and innocent.
Yep.
When it came to the amount of fraud, the amount of election fraud, the amount of corruption, the amount of theft going on. He had no idea, and what they would be willing to do, the levels they would be willing to sink to or resort to in order to stop someone like him.
Right.
But he learned quickly, but he paid a big price. But for that lack of education, they took a pound of flesh. For every part of it he didn't understand, they took their pound of flesh from him. Right? They took his ear, right? Part of his ear.
Yeah.
They put him through hell.
Yeah. Financially.
Financial hell. Put him through these investigations, which is hell. Put his family through hell. They raided his compound, Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Right? And then
$500 million overall bond. The largest bond ever in history.
Trumped up, lawsuits. Oh, yeah,
misdemeanors.
Accusing him of raping someone in a clothing store.
Yeah, but rape is sexy, remember, Eugene Carroll said.
Oh, my God.
It's interesting you're making, because that is a trial by fire. If you look at the time period, because the funny thing about Trump, and a lot of people don't even understand, is that it was an amalgamation of different party politics that built who he was. He identified as a Democrat for a little under 9 years. He was predominantly a conservative. He rubbed shoulders with the Reform Party, the Libertarian Party. Yeah. But predominantly a conservative. People go back to the Oprah tapes. He was a fiscal Reagan conservative, blue collar Democrat at worst.
Right.
But even with all of that tutelage, and all that studying and experiential from a level that nobody listening to this cast or you and I understand. The amount of money and sheer influence that he possessed. You just don't experience that. You just don't read about that. You've got to be in it. So all of his worldly knowledge, and he still fell for one of the oldest tricks in the books when it comes to politics, which is you know nothing until you're a part of that system. And you can read about it, and you can experience it. And luckily, I got into it at a very young age. I started diving into politics around 6 years old with the Iran-Contra hearings. And my grandmother used to shelve out cookies and Subway sandwiches in the breakfast line and lunch line at Anna Capel Middle School. And she would always wave me through, because I would show up with my French bread pizza and my grape juice Welch's and with a little pop straw, and she would be like, go, 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 right? And she would take money out of her check and put it in there. And anyway, so I was very interested. My father was a Marine, is a Marine, passed away. But I saw Ollie North, and I was so just enamored with the salad and the uniform and the crispness and the way he talked. So she would take me home when the Iran-Contra hearings were going on and let me ditch school and watch it over at her house. So I was always interested. And then I ran with some campaigns and did some work in Wyoming that kind of cut my teeth of the party politics, but also saw a lot of it in the military and understanding the politics in the military. So, but Trump had all of that. Why do you think, not that, what do you think went through his head when he gets sworn in? 3 hours later, and this is the long way around the barn, but 3 hours later, he sees there is a call for an impeachment printed in the WAPO and a couple of other articles. Calling, he's been sworn in, let's impeach him. And not only that, but literally within just a couple of weeks, has a $1.6 trillion omnibus bill laying in front of him. And they tell him, in order for you to get the defense, to get the nuclear redux that you're looking to do, to reinstill our defense in this country, protect this country, you've got to go ahead and sign 1.6 trillion of pork. And he says, I'm signing it, and I will never do it again. And I was like, oh no, it has begun, because I was like, dude, yes, you will. You're going to have to if you want to get anything done in Washington. Can you speak a little bit about just that whole process for Trump? What do you think he learned in that 4? He learned sitting out for 4, but now that he's back in, can you break it down? Because you've done a great job. I mean, you've got some amazing stuff you've been talking about, and that's where I want people to kind of see the bingo card and your process. And I set it up in a long way, and I apologize. It took so long.
So he's coming in, and he's an outsider. Right. He understands the systems, the ins and outs of business, the legal, accounting, tax provisions of real estate, of corporation work, things of that nature. Politics, he sort of understood, but from an outside looking in. And for the longest time, the highest branches of government were protected and held for only club insiders. And so these are the ones that fully understand the systems, the ins and outs. And so as he's coming in, he's learning on the job. But the other problem there is that, like all of us, he also had a lot of this information withheld from him. And he underwent the social engineering as a baby boomer, post-World War II, where he had adopted this idealistic view of America as the ultimate good guys, that we are not corrupt, we're moral, we're Christian, we are whatever. And the people might be, but the federal government is not. And the federal government has thoroughly been corrupted and taken over, and serves a different master, not the people. And so he, as the representative, he's symbolic, because when you have a big tyrannical establishment take over and centralize power, this always happens. This is the nature of it, right? The more wealthy and powerful you become, the more wealth and power you accumulate. And you eventually must form alliances, and then this always happens. This is the third great cycle where this has happened in Western civilization in the modern time. And so what always happens then is a champion emerges from the people. There's a big populist uprising when they've had enough, they're fed up, and the support swells this champion into office to carry out the will and reforms of the people, and that's Trump. And so as he goes in, he's not just getting the education. we're observing him. He's an open book, and we're getting educated too on the ins and outs of government in the same time. But you see the price he's paying for the tuition for the classes that he missed because they were withheld from him and everyone else on purpose. This is tactical, right? This is the information that everyone must have going in the future. And so those are the areas I'm covering in the book that dispel these legends of America and these innocent, idealistic, naive concepts that we hold of our country and how our system works. Like, for instance, right now, I mean, this generation, what is it, Z or Generation Zero?
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting...
Generation Y bother.
You know, each generation successively after the war, World War II, has been robbed more and more thoroughly.
That's fair to say.
And the theft and robbery and destruction of the economic structure that's supposed to be in place is just getting to a point where it's becoming almost intolerable. And so now you're seeing what happens then if that doesn't change. You see radicalism. The response is radicalism.
Sure. We've seen that. And I agree with you. There also has to be something that needs to be brought up, the lack of self-discipline in the generations also. When it comes to spending, when it comes to want versus need. A lot of people talk about, well, my mom and dad could work at one job, and my father would work, and we could afford a simple house and a car and have a phone line and everything else. And I completely agree. It's always hard, but it's not like your generation and my generation were simply starting working at Jack in the Box and having a family.
Yeah,
I lived in a studio apartment that was 350 square feet. I didn't have a brand new car. I didn't have the best sound system. I had to make choices and have the self-discipline not to get caught up in the materialism that the things that you own wind up owning you, right?
Yeah.
But this generation does seem to want it all. They want instant gratification. They want everything. They want to be a CEO out of the 4 years. They want to go to school. They were promised things that are impossible to achieve. Is that not just an economical burden, but also a psychological burden that's different from when our parents said you had to go earn it?
Yeah.
And now you have a generation that says you deserve it.
Well, you're going to have youthful idealism, which will fade away when you get the rude awakening and the
20 to 30s
into the real world and all that.
Yeah.
So I would say, you almost have some element of that in every generation. But one of the things I go into in the book is the sheer amount of criminal theft that's happening. And I outline, I think it's like 20 or 21 methodologies by which those that call themselves globalists manipulate our system of government and our system of laws in order to steal en masse from America. And when they steal on that level and rob America, it hits everybody. But the impact and the consequences of the theft and the lack and the poverty that comes from the theft becomes more and more severe as you move down the pyramid.
Sure, it goes down the ladder. Yep.
So I outline at least 20, and there's more than 20 ways that they're just illegally, criminally robbing us. It's just insane.
Yeah, like trickle-down economics is not the theory of just taking mass distribution from the wealth and bringing it down the ladder. It's also when you do have theft or you do have an overspend and you look at $37 trillion in debt, this also trickles down the same way. Essentially, shit rolls downhill.
And to the younger people that are just entering the economy. So and the theft has gotten worse and worse over the 80 to 100 years.
Sure.
And so if you started working and started your career earlier and you're earning money and acquiring property through all the inflationary cycles, and as the laws are getting more and more kleptocratic, right? Well, you're going to be sitting in a place where you're going to keep more of that wealth and money. But if you're entering later on when it's, there's only bones to pick at, you're sort of out of luck.
Do you think it's possible for a younger person in today's society to be as successful as their parents?
It is, but the opportunity, America is the richest nation in the history of the world of all human societies.
Sure.
Okay. And so there should be such wealth, such a pool of wealth here that a large percentage should be able to, with a, moderate amount of effort, become financially successful or at least financially stable.
Right.
Right.
It's fair.
the more that pool of money shrinks because it's being stolen and siphoned off, right, to international elites, the more this happens, there's less and less. And so you're just going to it's going to constrict the number of people that are going to experience that level of success financially. It's going to get fewer and fewer. That's a big problem. And it's not right. It's unjust. It's unlawful.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's being stolen. It should be there for them to go and earn and go after, but it's being stolen from them before they can do that.
So when you say it's being stolen, who directly? Is this politicians? Is this fat cat CEOs, global elites? When you narrow this down and put your finger on it, people have always made money. People have always at the top, whether it be CEOs or people who go through and get a doctorate or whatever it would be, or invest properly.
Yeah.
There's always a collection of people who have the have-nots. I mean, we can go back to tribal days, feudal days.
It's not talking about the haves and have-nots.
So what are we talking about?
We're talking about economic theft, mass-scale economic theft.
Okay, so who would be the targets of that? Who would be, we know who the victims are.
Who's doing it?
Yeah.
Who's the perpetrator?
Sure.
It is a central banking cartel.
Correct.
Okay, and then they've been manipulating and influencing the laws to make the laws more and more kleptocratic in their favor so they can steal more and more money out of the economy without going to jail.
Right. Okay.
And so it started in 1913 when they established the Federal Reserve banking system. It created a debt-based money system. I'm not going to get into all the nerdy.
No, you're okay. Go ahead. You're on the roll.
But then, they through the court system, they also started to weaken the antitrust laws, so that then through either their funds or the direct share ownership they have in major corporations, they could gobble up more and more small and mid-sized companies until all you're left with is a cartel of conglomerates, okay, which used to be illegal
for
hundreds of years.
Yeah, so Southern California, Edison, Pac Bell, I mean, we can go on and on and on.
So now all those families that would have owned those small to medium-sized companies and made a good living,
sure,
and then that moves down through their family and their neighborhood and their community. Now that's concentrated, it's centralized with these mega wealthy people that don't really need it. And again, I'm not a socialist or communist, but I'm anti financial corruption. I'm anti-theft. I'm I'm a thou shall not steal guy.
Right, and a free market capitalist, right? Which is, this is antithetical to free market capitalism.
Free market capitalism has two weaknesses, and that's why the federal government, one of its duties as the vanguard is to protect us from these two weaknesses.
That's right.
And the two major weaknesses of capitalism, one's called a monopoly, and the other one's called a cartel. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so free market capitalism works beautifully, and everybody prospers. It is the cure to poverty. Okay, when we trade and we're free to create businesses, to create goods and services and exchange them freely, serving our peers with their wants and needs at a price the two agree on. That's free market capitalism. That's markets. But when you change the laws to allow all these corrupt practices to take place, you don't have that anymore. You have an oligarchy, you have cartel formation, and then you have massive economic theft. And I really haven't touched on this a lot in a lot of the interviews, but I feel like this needs to become a major issue.
Okay.
The other way that
good. You can say where you found it at.
I'll just touch on a couple more.
Sure.
The other laws that they got changed, so they weakened the antitrust laws so they could form monopolies, cartels,
right,
which is nuts that, you can only buy 2 phone operating systems in the United States. That's a monopoly.
Right.
That's unbelievable. We have all these software geniuses, but we only have 2 operating systems that we can buy. Why? We're not going to go down that rabbit. There's a reason why.
Yeah, there is a reason why.
Okay, so
no, hold on. We're not going to go down a rabbit hole. Let's just put the reason out there, and people are smart enough to look it up. You know the reason. I know the reason. What is it?
Well, part of it is theft and control of monopolies. The other part is surveillance.
That's what surveillance is the number one reason.
It absolutely is.
That's
the way reason. They were set up within QTEL, the CIA's money investing firm, so that they could control it right as the industry. They know the trends. They know what's coming.
Yeah.
And
you're talking with Leroy and I will be on tonight. We've worked with the programs that do it.
Right.
We know.
Yeah.
Even though we can't talk about them. So I don't want to segue. I want you to hold on to this because this is a really good point, but I'm thinking of something else. When you talk, you're a Thomas Sowell guy, I'm sure.
Sure.
You talk about the vulnerabilities to capitalism being a monopoly and a cartel, but there is a third, and that's overregulation. And that is dictated by the government. Can we ever have a true free market capitalism when the government sets the rules?
Well, I would argue that is not a weakness of capitalism.
That's a weakness of.
See, cartels and monopolies will naturally arise from capitalism if left unchecked.
Okay.
It is the natural
Right.
Disease that capitalism possesses, it's infected with.
Sure.
Regulation, I would say, is part of the disease of big government.
Right. But you have to have regulation in order so it has some guardrails,
You
right?
need regulation.
But it's the people who are using under the guise of guardrails
Yes.
as a benefit to Americans to ultimately use these criminal acts
So
that we're discussing.
the purpose of government is to protect the property and rights of the citizenry.
Correct.
Okay. And so we grant them the power to regulate businesses and produce laws that govern, moral behavior. We give this power over to our governments by voting them in and whatnot. And we could take it away by voting them out. Essentially, that's the intention of the system.
Right. That's the intention.
But there's a moral standard which is just and unjust. Just like wars, there's just wars and unjust. And regulations and laws, there's just and unjust. And that is whether they line up with moral law, right? The right and wrong which exists in the substrate, okay, which we gather, which is in us, which we understand by our very nature. And then these are the laws and the regulations that either produce good outcomes or bad outcomes. Just regulations produce generally good outcomes. Unjust produce negative outcomes.
Right. But isn't that antithetical to a free market, where a free market is supposed to be decided, the rules and regulations and the ebbs and flows are decided by the consumer?
Yes.
And that's been taken away, right? Because when you talk about forced selection, or there's only two choices where to go for power, or there's only two choices of where to get your internet.
Yeah.
That's a duopoly is not a free market. This is what happened in Russia. We know with the automobile industry, with the power industry. Reagan's one of his greatest jokes ever told. I think you probably heard it when he was talking quickly. So let's see if I can get this right. So he goes and says, listen, I want to go ahead and buy a car.
Yeah.
And he has to go. He said, fine, you got to go and get your license, and you got to go get in line for it, and you'll have your car. So he goes to the ministry and he says, great, I've saved money for my car. I want to buy it. And he says, great, well, we'll put you on a list and we'll see you in 10 years. He's like, 10 years? I've got to wait 10 years for a car? And the guy's like, yeah, absolutely. And he's like, well, what happens then? He's like, you give us the money, 10 years, we deliver a car. But he's like, yeah, but when do I get it? And the guy's like, what do you mean, when do you get it? He's like, well, is it going to be in March or April? He's like, 10 years from today. He's like, yeah, but Wednesday or Thursday? He's like, dude, what difference does it make? He says, the plumber's coming Thursday. So Reagan was so good. He delivered a lot better to me. But the point is that we've seen this throughout history.
Yeah.
Do you feel that America is on a headline course to fall into this quagmire of having the government regulate everything and complete control? Is that the goal? I mean, do we want socialist communism? Is that the goal of the government, or where am I missing this here?
I'm of the opinion that traditional communism, traditional and reformed communism and socialism has ultimately failed.
Oh, yeah.
Even the largest communist state of China has moved on from it.
That's right.
And so they've moved on to this third way, or this theory that comes out of Keynes. It's called managed capitalism, which is basically a three-tiered structure where you have an all-powerful central bank. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Then underneath that, you have a quasi-socialist government that's very controlling, a powerful few, Politburo. And under them, they basically dominate the companies. And the companies are allowed to exist and make money and sell goods and whatever. But they're going to have an agent of the Politburo sitting in the office right next to the CEO.
This is a blueprint of socialist Russia. I mean, everything you just said, from the Politburo all the way down.
What they've changed is they allow the companies now to own the means of production,
right,
to own the farms, to own these things, because they realize they're the best at producing.
Correct.
And so
have incentivized them for an overabundance of crop or yield, which
Yes.
is something antithetical to communism.
So the real threat, and America is not really under threat of moving into a Russian-style 1900s communism.
Sure.
That's really not what we're at risk of. There would be a giant secession of 49 or 48 states if that were to happen. What you see with us is us moving into the Chinese model, us being nudged and nudged and nudged until we're eventually California, and then nudged and nudged until we're the UK, and then nudged a little further until we're China. That's what I think the risk is to America is moving further and further until we are completely embodying the vision of John Maynard Keynes of a true third way managed, capitalized economic system.
China and the CCP is regaining control in China, though. And that's the one thing that the Maoists will always come back to the basic roots of Maoism, which is power over the people. China's struggling. We know they're struggling. People think that very much like Russia in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, that there's some sort of powerhouse in the military when they're not. They were a razor blade fleet. They were bubble gum and spray paint.
Yeah.
And they essentially got into a bidding war with the United States, which they should have learned from World War II. You don't want to mess with the United States when it comes to money.
Yeah.
China's now struggling with power. They're struggling to feed anyone outside the 9 provinces and the 9 major cities in China. And they are hamstrung, just like the Japanese were, with energy. Do you think that this is a result predominantly, not just from like a just globalist vision, New World Order type stuff, or Maoist China, or whatever it would be? Do you think this really comes down to the money that we are bleeding when it comes to our debt that hamstrings us from breaking away from these mentalities that are being forced upon us? Is it the $37 trillion that's causing this, or is it the greed of everyday politicians and elitists, or both?
I would go back to the theft. I think the debt is another node of theft.
Right.
The wars is another node of theft. The corrupt appropriations that are hidden within the omnibus bills, these $1 trillion bills, is another node of theft. The money laundering, which is vast.
Oh, it's massive.
It's pervasive.
Absolutely.
USAID was only one rock that they lifted up and looked under and publicized.
Right.
But it's happening at the Pentagon. It's happening everywhere.
Sure. $9 trillion lost in the last 20 years. $9 trillion. Do you know how big $1 trillion is?
A lot of money.
Do you understand the size of that? I mean, $1 billion is a rail car.
It's insane.
It's a rail car. They're talking like a ship. On the entire deck of a ship is $1 trillion. The size, I don't know if you've seen these little videos that they show you overall.
Yeah.
It's incredible. How do you lose $9 trillion?
It's insane.
Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
And you know, Marx, he loved the graduated income tax because you're looking at individuals paying the taxes, right?
Right.
And he's not trying to bleed the rich. He's trying to bleed the upper middle class or the upper class, not the ultra class, right? Not the multi-billionaires.
Yeah, you never mess with the 3%. Yeah.
Those are the people backing him. So what happened is when we got the new economic order, the rules-based international order and the economic order that they created at post-World War II, what they did was they shifted, and it started in 1913 when they created the central bank. They shifted to where, see, the ultra-rich they own multinational corporations and funds.
Sure.
And banks and things like that. So they, through tariffs and different things, and through their merchant businesses, are paying for the taxes, for the government budget, right? But the workers didn't pay anything. The workers who make the least amount of money were keeping their money, buying houses, putting their kids in college,
right? Yeah.
But also bettering themselves, growing their skill base, earning more, right? That's what should be happening. So they couldn't have that. So they switched it, and they bring in GATT and the Bank of International Settlements, and they go, we want free trade. Free trade is about them no longer having to pay all the bills.
Right.
We want to keep our billions and trillions and let's push the bills down to the workers, because they hate the workers. You and me, they hate us.
Why do they hate us?
Well, it's superiority complex.
Sure.
Right? So they have a belief system, an ideology. That's what the book is about, their ideology, right? And their core ideology, all the coalition on the left, everyone goes back. Point of origins, Darwin. And Darwin teaches survival of the fittest. Well, if you have the fittest, then you have the fit and the unfit.
Right.
And then you go into his cousin in France, Galton, who then taught the superior and inferior.
Right, the hunter and the prey. Yep.
Right? And so if you're at the top of society, the reason is, back in the day, you'd say, oh, I'm divinely selected, right? This is the blessing of God, right? I'm coronated by God. That's the divine right to rule. That's what the kings believe.
Uh-huh.
The Pope would coronate.
Right. Yeah.
But when that was all done away with in the secularization of culture, they need a replacement for that. So that's where the genetic theories of Darwin and Galton come in, and they go, oh, the reason that we're at the top and we deserve to be at the top is because we are the genetically superior, right? And then what is everybody else? They're the unwashed masses.
Sure. So 3,600 years of modern day history is essentially for naught. We're all peons and slaves and peasants. We're still essentially that's what you're saying. Just because we don't have a monarch or have a king or some theological demigod who says he's related to Charlemagne, we're essentially still where we are now, the haves and have-nots, the hunter and the prey.
Well, that's what they want to take us back to.
But do we not feel that that's what we're seeing, or even a modicum of that? Because it's hard to say that with $37 trillion in debt. You're talking about the theft. You're talking how it's almost impossible nowadays to actually make something of yourself similar to when we were younger or our parents or our grandparents. Isn't that success for the elitists? Isn't that at least on the precipice of exactly what they want?
They want it all.
Yeah.
It's the game of Monopoly. They want it for themselves. And so by bringing in GATT, bringing in free trade, getting rid of tariffs, and bringing in all that income tax that took several decades to get where they wanted, they can bleed the workers, bleed the small and mid-sized business owners, and then they pay nothing.
You're for the tariffs.
Oh, I love the tariffs.
You are the only fiscal conservative besides myself that does not have a problem with tariffs.
Oh, I love.
Do you understand this? The tariffs are like the boogeyman, the naughty word. They have no understand before the Federal Reserve that how much money we pulled in from tariffs. Donald Trump has demonstrated with $100 billion, and they're like, well, that's taxes on you.
No,
it's really hard for people to understand the benefits of tariffs. Maybe not for the short term, but for the long term. Can you walk just a little bit, scratch that surface?
So imagine a pipe of water. Okay, there's these two pipes coming together like a T. I have a pool. Yep. I have a small pool.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine two PVC pipes, and there's a switch.
Right.
The water can come from this direction or this direction, then it feeds into the pool.
Right.
The pool must be filled or the pool is done. That's money. That's the economy. So with what they call free trade, which is this marketing, it's just mind control. It's actually workers paying all the bills into the economy, paying for the government. So the one pipe is called the workers. The other pipe is called the international ultra-rich and the merchant class, okay? When you reduce taxes and institute tariffs, now the money, you're switching the pipe, okay? So the pipe that's paying for everything is now coming from them. They have to pay the bills.
Right.
And we're paying fewer of the bills. Eventually, you want to get to a point where you're not penalizing your working base at all. Workers should not have to pay income tax. I think it's a crime. It's more theft. These guys are so wealthy, they should be paying for these systems because they're using the systems.
Right.
Okay? And they get great benefit from their persuasion over government. Instead, they use it to get more advantage and to pay less.
Right.
And to move their money into tax shelters, international tax shelters and whatnot.
Right, like Apple.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a whole other conversation. Listen, walk me through. Just stop me when I'm wrong. In the United States, with textiles, plastics, mercantile, and industry, we're able to shift the production and means from automotive industry to warfighting. Started creating plexiglass for fighters, tanks, ammunition, everything else, and retroactively became the richest country in the world within a short period of time, because without the United States, most of us would be speaking German or a version of Japanese. This propelled the United States into a superpower overnight, but with a military that was very, very small. The United States military wasn't even one of the largest in the earth. In fact, it was not even in the top 15. But after World War II, that all changed because the military-industrial complex was born, and we understand that, and became really the world's police. But what we saw with Bill Clinton and others is we saw a shift from industry and moving away from the Industrial Revolution and what built the United States by shipping manufacturers and labor overseas. I'll get to a point. This, what people thought was cheaper, wound up driving up prices. It drove up cost of living. It increased unemployment. It increased personal debt. We saw this because ultimately it affected with people with the amount of jobs that we had available in the United States and what we call good paying jobs today.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump says, here's what we're going to do. We've got people investing money overseas and offshore accounts like Apple that goes to Ireland because of a low yield on the interest rates. And pays 2.6% compared to the United States, which gouges companies at 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And they take this money out of the United States, which ultimately redistributes the wealth somewhere else other than the United States of America. And these industries are following. So they can make a product cheaper for 7 cents on the dollar versus 37 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
And says, I'm going to bring business back. Obama says, no, can't do it. You can't. There's no way Donald Trump's going to bring these businesses back. They're gone. What's the first thing he does? Businesses start coming back.
Yep.
Putting the tariffs, and I'm almost done, but putting the tariffs on other countries may in the short term increased overall cost. But what does it do is it's a reverse. It incentivizes these industries to come back to the United States because it would be cheaper to build in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Which would ultimately create a competitive market, multiple brands for something that only is from a couple of corporations right now.
Yeah.
Which would ultimately make those American goods and costs cheaper than the global market. And they either have to lower their prices, innovate on their own without stealing our IP, or United States becomes the dominant in that producer. How does that not make sense for everybody when they're talking about tariffs, that it may be in the short term increase prices, but the long term is beneficial to America? Why can't people understand that? And did I describe it correctly or not?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's more benefits than that.
Okay.
Because the more of the manufacturing returns to the United States, as long as we're getting rid of the illegal immigrant issue,
right,
then there's more job creation.
More money.
And more money. And if there's more jobs than the labor can fill, the companies have got to offer higher wages in order to attract the workers to come to work.
That's it.
Right?
That's right.
And if there's still not enough to fill, then they're going to have to innovate.
That's right.
And invest in automation to fill in the gap. And so then we have more innovation. We have more companies that can provide automation, provide software. And so it just raises the economy.
And those other companies investing in the United States, because we have innovated to a point to surpass what they were offering, which was only cheap labor. It's not a superior product. It's a superior price.
Right.
So the basics of economics is that it is an ebb and flow and it's ever changing. Yep. But we seem to have gotten in this rut that there's only one way to do things, and that's to tax people. But there's never been a nation in the history of nations who's taxed people into prosperity.
Well, the reason that people are confused is because the ruling class, which are primarily at the top, central banking cartel, they're also highly positioned in investment banking and also lending banking, right? Normal, regular everyday banking. Because they're running the show, and then they have their agents and their mouthpieces going out, spreading economic fallacies to the public as experts. That's why we're seeing the end of the age of the credentialed, highly educated, degreed expert, because they're caught in too many lies. And when they come out and say that there's this inflation's transient, there is no inflation. There's no inflation. It's transient.
It's transitory.
And then we're all hit with $11 eggs.
Right.
Right. We go, oh, they lied to me.
Yeah.
Oh, they're lying for their masters. They're lying for their boss because they're stealing from us. That's really what's happening. It's very simple. Economics, I think, is extremely simple. The tariff thing means lower taxes for the workers, higher fees and taxes for the largest businesses that are multinational businesses. The countries don't pay the tariffs. The largest multinational businesses in those countries are paying the tariffs.
That's correct.
The richest people in their society are paying the tariffs. Okay? So now we're making the richest pay the bills while we don't penalize our workers. And what happens with the workers? They make more money, they're going to earn more, there's better job opportunities, and they're going to keep more.
Right.
And what happens when you make more and you keep more? You move up the socioeconomic ladder. We have prosperity. Your kids do better. Your family does better.
Middle class grows.
The middle class expands and grows.
Yeah.
And then society is strengthened. But what does that produce? It produces a more conservative culture, society, and it produces more freedom.
If I asked how much time do we got? Okay. So this is why I love talking to you, man. I always see podcasters try to compete with their guests. I can't stand that shit. Just talk and let that person cook. And my job is to throw you an occasional curveball or throw you a fastball over the plate so you can drive 3 home. That's the goal. It's not to strike you out. So it bothers me. If you want to have a point of contestation with somebody, usually you should probably let them know. Sure. Is my thought. Yeah. So if I tell you meat prices are increasing, we've seen eggs come down, we've seen gas come down, we see unemployment, we've seen $9 billion was taken out of the budget, first time in 35 years. And they go, well, that's not enough. Well, we know that, but at least it's $9 billion less than what we spent 5 minutes ago. But if we see meat prices going up, the first thing you hear, this is Trump's tariffs that do this. But could it possibly be that the ranchers and the cattlers across the United States, because money was tight, because we saw hyperinflation, because we saw less money in America's pocket, they started making choices to buy chicken and buy pork and not buy steak and red meat as much because it was more expensive. Then the cattlers and the ranchers, they have less production. And with less production, also killing millions of cows because of a mad cow disease epidemic that didn't take place,
right,
has lowered the threshold of goods on the market. And as we know, it's all based on supply and demand. Now, money is better, jobs are better, economy's better. People are coming out of this and wanting to spend, but the supply and demand is bad. Can you please explain to people that this has nothing to do with tariffs, but has more to do with supply side economics?
Well, it can't have anything to do with tariffs unless you're importing the cows and the beef.
Right.
Because tariffs only apply to imports.
But it's the grain. They're tagged.
No, it's simple supply and demand. So there have been mass cullings. I haven't looked into this specific commodity, but you have with the chickens and other livestock where the leftists were attacking all the supply chains.
Yes.
And attacking everything they could, from baby formula to diapers to oil and energy and natural gas and chicken and beef. And they're trying to attack those supply chains and attack the supply. Why? Because that's going to begin the domino effect of inflation, coupled with the money supply that's in circulation.
$9 trillion spent doesn't hurt. That helps a little bit.
So, but the thing that really activated it, like it's out there, it's ready to sort of burst.
Right.
But the thing that activated it is as soon as Biden got in, the first executive orders that he signed on day one were all attacking the supply chains. Remember when we were having to have like baby formula airlifted from Germany?
Yeah, remove the deregulation that Trump put in place. Oh, absolutely.
Canceling oil pipelines,
right?
Moratoriums on production.
Leases, yeah.
And then they're going out and testing all these healthy birds and chickens and saying, oh, they tested on the PCR test, so you got to kill 1 million chickens.
Do you know he killed 100 million chickens right before he left office? Not Biden didn't go out there and slaughter, but 100 million.
Amazing.
I had no idea.
Amazing.
Until we did a show on it right before. And of course, everyone goes, well, that's not Biden going out there and slaughtering chickens with his auto pin. Yeah, you understand. you blame Donald Trump for something that Epstein did 20 years ago. I think you can go ahead and hold Biden accountable for at least one thing. I got to get this in. Let people know where to find your book. It's important. We will tonight. We're going to talk about the digital version and everything, but let them know your website. Take a minute or two, and then we'll get to the rest.
Yeah, my website's tsdixon.com if they want to, find out more about me and what I'm up to. And then the book is available on Amazon, and then the audiobook just launched a couple weeks ago, and so it's on Audible.
Okay.
And Apple Books.
Who's the stud that recited that amazing? Would that be you?
Well, everybody was telling me that's better if you read it yourself, you narrate it yourself. So I bit the bullet and I narrated it myself. I'm not much of a voice actor or a narrator.
You sound good. Now, if you hate his voice, buy the book anyway and just play it a little slower or faster, speed it up a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
It sounds good. Listen, this is, like I said, this is why you're here, and I'm so honored to have you in the studio, and it was just a no-brainer to have you here. And plus, Tonto wasn't available. But walk me through you. Where are you from? Where were you born?
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in the Dixon household? Was predominantly religious, military, blue collar, white collar? What was it? And walk me through you.
Yeah, born in California, raised in Pennsylvania.
What part of California?
Sacramento.
I had no idea. I was Ventura.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Two California boys who really woke up. See, we can write this now because we went into the lion's den and came out unscathed.
Oh, seriously. Oh, yeah.
That place is a shithole.
It's just gone into the. It's bad.
You can say shithole on this podcast. It's okay.
Well, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania from first grade through college, and then went back to California for 12 years, and then relocated to the free state of Florida,
right,
with my wife in 2020, and we're currently there in Southwest Florida, and loving it.
Mm-hmm.
Household, military family.
Okay.
Father was a higher up at the Army Corps of Engineers.
No way. I had no idea.
Yeah. And so he was very successful there. Was a great leader for them throughout his entire career. He only had one employer. And he did a tour overseeing the reconstruction of Iraq and Afghanistan for 15 months. And real proud of him for that.
And he did that while he was in the Corps?
Yes, in leadership.
Well, not a civilian?
Well, he always was a civilian engineer in leadership at the Corps.
I understand. Okay, great. So he did that, but didn't get the $1.5 million paycheck for a month's worth of work. Or did he?
Not that much.
Okay, because you can share. They were making good money over there.
Yeah, I mean, he got hazard pay and whatnot, but I don't think the government employees were making that. I think the contractors were making.
Oh yeah, contractors are making a lot.
Yeah. So and then both grandfathers, World War II, uncles, Korea, Vietnam. So a lot of military, raised with a love of the country, love of our founding, our roots, but not a very political environment. Politics wasn't greatly discussed.
At the table. There was no debate politics at the dinner table, or was it more stay in your lane, or
just wasn't a big topic? They'd laugh about Clinton or something and whatnot, but what he was up to, his antics.
Yeah.
It's more about the popular culture topics, not so much anything with policy.
Yeah.
And so there was no indoctrination in the household or a passing of beliefs or anything like that.
Religion?
Oh yeah, well, Christianity. Yeah, I was raised in the Presbyterian and Methodist Church.
Okay.
Wasn't into that, and I found it on my own as a teenager.
Oh, really? As a teenager?
Yeah, as a teenager.
Okay. What age were you when you started?
I was 14 when I had my first experience, got saved, and then as teenagers do, backslid, and then it was about 17, 18 when I fully came back to it, and what
was the catalyst for you? Was it just time, or was there an event that really brought you back? And
it brought me back. Well, for me, my Christian experience was a very visceral spiritual experience, and so I had a very visceral sense of God's spirit, God's presence, and the connection that brought from when I was 14 when I had that salvation experience. And then when I backslid, I felt the once you have that and then you're disconnected from it, it's like...
Yeah, the absence of God is like the worst thing in the world when you don't feel that anymore, that connection.
It was bad. And so that lasted for about 3.5 years. And then I was still attending church, still going to youth group at that time. And then I was on a retreat, and I'd been praying and begging God, that I could have that back again. There's a psalm by David that I really relate to. David had everything. He was the most successful, wealthy man in the Near East, in the Middle East, during his lifetime. He was the most successful man in his era, and he had all the gold and the wives and the palaces and the power. But then he sins against God and commits adultery with Bathsheba and has her husband, offed and whatnot.
Right. Whacked.
And he's terrified that this is going to separate him from God. God will cut him off. And he says, of all of his treasure, of everything he possesses, his two most valuable possessions, he lists in this psalm. He said, do whatever you want to me. He said, but just cast me not from your spirit, O Lord, and don't separate me from your presence. Cast me not from your presence, and do not remove your spirit from me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that I relate to that. That to me, that's not a theological statement. That's a visceral experience. So I was at a retreat,
mm-hmm.
and I was speaking with someone there, and then it all happened. I had the lightning bolt, the whole deal, and it was restored and it came back, and I was reconnected, and I've stayed reconnected ever since.
Has it been tested since, or has it been just unwavering? Sure. Yeah.
No.
It's not true faith if it's unwavering, in my opinion. It's hard to be that certain about anything with the constant distractions of this mortal coil.
I wouldn't say my faith is my certainty is there, but I would say, you live life.
Sure.
right? You live life and you go through different phases and periods of your life. And you know, if you're going to be real about it and authentic, I mean, life is life, and there's
Sure.
things that happen.
Sure.
And there's chapters, and there's things you're proud of, things you're not proud of, whatever. But that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of live, the band Live, Throwing Copper, fantastic album.
Oh yeah.
Following up is Pray, and there's a song called Heaven.
Yeah.
And in the words, and he is a spiritual guru.
Is he?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, just amazing. I mean, all of his songs, people listen to lightning crashes and everything else. There's religious undertones and overtones all over the place.
Okay, yeah.
You know, Shit Town is not a song of that, but there's plenty of, but in it, he makes a comment and it says, pretty much, don't tell me about God. I see my daughter and I believe.
I know that lyric.
Yeah. And that is profound.
Yeah.
And I think it took my children entering this earth and seeing the gift and miracle of birth to truly understand.
That's how it hit you.
God's grace. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, the trials and tribulations that I went through were horrendous. And the things that I saw as a youth stole my faith.
Okay.
Because of my own mortality and my own incapability of handling things and trauma that ultimately no kid should go through.
Yeah.
And I was raised with it, but I was also betrayed by it, by a person who used God as leverage. And so, you know, I've told this story on the show. It's actually one of our most successful shows we've ever done. I think it had 1.5 million views, and it kind of put us on a map. And I always like to revisit the show because it was extremely palpable and difficult to talk about. But
yeah,
I think about the things that are thrown in front of us, and it always was my inability to understand God, and who could, because he's omnipotent. And if human feelings could interpret God, we wouldn't necessarily need the Bible, and we wouldn't need the disciples and the prophets.
Yeah.
But I think the number one thing I always told myself was, why would God do this to me? And I would always ask that question. And it always kept me from accepting his grace, because I would always keep him at arm's length.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when I finally realized, and this was only, and the show has created this, because there were many people who've influenced the spiritual journey that I've been on over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And they've helped me. And they've said, hey, you're doing God's work. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. Yeah. But it started with just a couple of words that allowed me to go ahead and start thinking about it. A good friend of mine, Otto, who worked with me at Comcast, was one of my subordinates, but certainly not from a mental standpoint or physical, just from a position of authority. And it gave me a Bible, and it collected dust for, 7 years.
Yeah.
And then I found it one day and started flipping through. So a very long story is I had to come to the realization that it's not God's fault for what I'm experiencing, but it's actually the creation of sin that free will doesn't necessarily control.
Yeah.
And you can't have free will if God is up there controlling everything. And that was hard for me to understand. So what I changed my mindset, and this is for the people listening who may be still suffering and not having the realization that you did at a young age, is once I stopped looking at the turmoil and the trauma and started looking at the gifts and how everything seemed to work out, no matter how much of an enigma wrapped into a riddle, into a puzzle it may seem, it always wound up working out, and that can't be nuance.
Yeah.
And the second thing was when I looked at all of the things in creation, whether it be DNA or it be the periodic table, or it be the sequencing of events, or the temperature, or the amount of moisture in the air, or magma turning in, or a gas turning into magma, turning into magma, turning to a solid, turning to a solid, turning into life. Of all the variables of everything having to be perfect to create everything we see today,
sure,
science says the probability of that is 0.
Impossible, actually.
It's beyond zero.
Yeah.
It's not just an improbability, it's an impossibility.
Yes.
Then you have to go ahead and ask the question. If there is only a scintilla of a chance that there would be a God, you have to believe.
Yeah.
You're responsible to believe,
Yeah.
because that's what science tells us. We must follow through with all thought and all practicality, no matter how improbable. That's science.
Yeah.
So that was for me a logical deduction and emotional deduction of why I came back to God. This sets us up for a huge question.
Okay.
And of course you can make any statement you want on this, but this is what I try to do is use my own experiential learnings and try to apply it to the person sitting across.
Yeah.
So now that you've had a chance to give me your testimonial and mine.
Yeah.
Why is religion such a serious threat to every power structure that tries to assert power from the people? Why is religion such a threat to them?
Well, I have a different angle on it.
Okay. I'll love to hear.
I would differentiate religion from our Western spiritual inheritance.
Okay. All right.
So I am of the belief that what was passed down to us that's documented in the Bible is an assortment, a sequence of spiritual experiences and empowerments that are a source of unbelievable power.
Sure.
And truth.
Sure.
And that the goal has been for a long time to censor and restrict the knowledge of that and exposure of that, essentially stealing our inheritance from us, and in the process replacing it with some type of religious structure, which in my opinion, most religious structures are meant to control the minds of the people in order to get them to behave in a certain way and not react.
Okay.
And
are we talking about organized religion specifically?
Yeah, there's certain religious systems. Like, for instance, Marxism is a political religion. Marx was not so much an economist as he was a socialist theologian.
Yeah, theologian for sure. Yep.
And so he was creating a religion of political works for one to become a good person and atone for their sin.
Sure.
That's why you have the virtue signaling and all this stuff.
And we have Al Gore with global warming and the CO2 donations. That's a form of theologian.
Yes.
It is.
He's an evangelist.
Give us money.
Yes.
And you will be your sins will be forgiven.
Environmentalism is totally a religion.
It is absolutely a religion. It's absolutely, God, this is
That's
great.
another Crichton thing. Crichton, before he died, was going off about this on all his speeches.
You should move in. Just tell your wife you're not coming home.
So, and if you look at other structures, the first great establishment that controlled Western civilization was the medieval papacy. Now, I'm not anti-Catholic and I'm not knocking Catholicism, but the papal structure in Rome controlled the monarchies of Europe for 1,000 years post-Constantine.
Yep.
Okay, and it wasn't until Martin Luther rediscovers, by having this voice speak to him on the steps of Santa Scala in Rome, where he's climbing up on his knees, and this voice speaks and says, "The just shall live by faith," several times. He got up and walked out. He had this encounter, and this one sentence is the origin point, the point of origin for the modern Western world.
Right.
That one sentence, "The just shall live by faith," and the true meaning of that he unpacked. It took him years to discern and have the breakthrough of what that meant, to interpret that. It's sort of a mysterious thing to say.
Sure.
Even though it's Habakkuk the prophet, and then Paul is doing a breakdown of it in the New Testament, trying to preach the gospel of grace, which he got in Arabia and was trying to proliferate throughout the first century church. And so that was forgotten and lost. And he, through great pain and effort, rediscovers it, and then gives it back, reoffers it to the public. What happens? They break free from this 1,000 years of tyranny and go and create the Western Hemisphere.
Right.
The Pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't really understand the impact of this history, where it all comes from.
Right.
This is half of the earth.
Right.
From one sentence.
Sure. Was that the voice? Was that the voice of God?
I think it was either the Holy Spirit or an angel.
Or a revelation? Is it possible for a human being to come to that conclusion on their own?
I doubt it.
I don't think so.
I think God was ready to start something.
And considering how long that took him to decipher and understand that message would explain that it probably didn't derive from him alone. I mean,
exactly.
Don't you believe in a muse or divine spirit influencing people?
Sure.
It's an interesting concept.
And every time these things are the true things are restored, not the counterfeit, not the system of control.
Sure.
I believe generally a religion is a system of control on the mind, whereas the actual real life spiritual experiences that's described by the Bible is the opposite. It grants you incredible liberty and then power.
So to make sure I'm understanding, and I could be way off base, you're not condemning organized religion.
Not at all.
Not at all. What you're saying is that, no, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. I'm interpreting that organized religion is as corruptible as man, and therefore is not necessarily the end-all be-all for the Word of God. Is that fair to say, or is there something I'm missing?
If you're going to boil it down, what I really mean is that, and I'm not making a generalization about all organized religions.
Of course you're not. I understand that.
What I'm saying is that there's more. There is more.
Sure.
And that quantity of experiences that is available grants incredible liberty, creates liberty and power. And so to answer the question why they want to keep that, or why they want to use it, or why they hate it so much, that's why.
Yeah. There's an old adage, military and also Leos and anyone else, is once you've been shot at, life gets simplistic.
Sure.
The faith is the same way. I believe once you have that experience with God, whether you know it or not, life gets a little simpler, and without it, it gets really complicated. And there's nothing like being lost. Did you have a rebellious side as a kid? You strike me as a person who did. I mean, did you read Catcher in the Rye or something? Do I need to?
I did.
Of course you did. But, and isn't it funny that those two times will probably correlate if you think back?
Yeah, no, I was very rebellious. Yeah, I was a bad kid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell me about it. It's okay. Listen, your publicist. Well, what was it? What was it? Rebellion because it was a father issue? Was it rebel against the system? Did you hate school? I mean, what was it? Did you listen to Quiet Riot too much?
I don't know. I went through a phase.
Yeah.
And I was angry.
Yeah.
And I was depressed, and I didn't care, and I was self-destructive, and that I don't know why.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to do everything bad. If it was bad and harmful and destructive, I wanted to do it.
Thank God you found God again. Not lost him, but we're found again and saved.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I really damaged my health.
Yeah.
And through drugs, that damaged my brain chemistry.
Yeah.
And
I think you unlocked a few things too. Don't sell yourself short. Listen,
I was in bad shape.
So was I.
And I had nowhere to turn. I couldn't tell my family I couldn't turn. I had nowhere to turn. I was very ashamed. And I was an atheist. I was indoctrinated with Darwinism in middle school.
Yeah.
And I believed it.
Sure.
I thought Christianity was a joke. It was as real as the Greek myths, equivalent to that.
Yeah.
Old stories, fables.
But not as cool. Because Greek mythology, I mean, it is kind of cool. I mean, it's cool. Come on, it is cool. It's complete crap, but cool.
And so, but I had nowhere to turn. And when you're a kid and you think you're going to be in trouble, it feels like the end of the world.
Of course it does. Yeah.
It feels like you're hemmed in.
Can't breathe. There's anxiety.
Yeah. And so the only thing I knew to do was to pray and to beg for help. And it sort of made me feel a little better, but I didn't expect anything to happen.
Sure.
And so I think I prayed for about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I don't know. And I just, all day, I would just, ask for help. And if you're real and you show me and you help me, I'll follow you.
Yeah.
That was the prayer.
That surrender is.
If you're real, show me.
Sure. Give me a sign.
I didn't think it was real. I had zero faith. Zero. And then I was outside the house one day. My own family think I'm nuts.
Well, who cares?
But I was outside my house, 14 years old. And then one day, and then after about 2 or 3 weeks of that prayer, he answered it, and just, I don't know how to describe it. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
But it came down.
Yeah.
And the inner transformation, the experience, the euphoric experience, just the most incredible experience.
You were touched.
It was amazing. And I didn't know the Holy Spirit was real. It was a concept. It was a theological concept, not an actual reality.
Or a construct, right? Yeah.
Or whatever.
Whatever you thought it was.
But that was real in salvation. I didn't know what salvation was a word. I didn't know what it meant until it happened. And and so after that, there was no denying it. Now, did I live the most perfect life? No. And I backslid pretty quickly, young, but but that's what happened to me. It is real. It is real. If people wonder, is Jesus real? Is the Holy Spirit? It's all real. It's all true. All of it's true.
You've done a lot of podcasts. Have you ever said that before?
No one's asked me about that.
Isn't it amazing? Do you believe people meet for a reason?
Sure, absolutely.
It's incredible. And I this is 4 years, and our stories are not dissimilar. Mine, I suffered from depression as a child, went through trauma, as we talked about.
Yeah.
And addiction, it bothers me when people say, were you an addict? And it bothers me for a reason, because I was habitual in the sense that the damage that I had in the military, the answer was opioids. And that was it. Hydrocodone and Flexeril and every other type of medicine you could possibly get your hands on so you could walk and function and continue to do your mission and do your job.
Yeah.
And then there came a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. But it's interesting that depression seems to be the sinew that ties all this together, usually when it comes to addiction.
Yep.
And I don't believe that people are naturally depressed. I believe that it takes an influence to get there, because the human spirit, now there's just people who are absolutely dead in the eyes and crazy. Richard Ramirez, that guy that was up in Oregon who was just, I'm not talking about that, but the average human being, I think the human spirit wants to be happy, wants to love their family, wants to protect the things that they care about. But depression is a demon.
Yeah.
And I think it's brought on by unclean things. And whether it be pornography or gambling or adultery or drugs and alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And here I am with whiskey behind you, and I'll partake in a snifter or two, and probably will ask if you want one at dinner. But
Sure.
It's very different.
Yeah.
But especially at that young age, you can be influenced, and it can bring out your inner turmoil and demons.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have had? Do you think you flirted with drugs because of depression, or do you think that drugs ultimately influence the depression, or is it both, one and the same?
Well, I think it's both. I think they feed on each other. It's like a downward spiral.
Right.
Like, oh, you're depressed, so you do drugs, and then the chemicals and the drugs make you more depressed, and then you do more drugs.
Right. Trying to search for it, right?
So it's like this, it's this feedback loop. I do want to say, though, that one part of it that I didn't mention is that really awful damage that I did to my mind, to my brain, really bad, was instantly healed. Instantly.
Did you have an overdose?
No.
Was it just overall time and deterioration from the amount of drugs you were doing? What was it?
I did. I was laced or something, and I got. It was definitely a toxic level of something. I don't know if it was PCP or what was it laced in it.
Yeah.
But when I researched it, because I was really having problems, it was going on for weeks, and I felt like I was going out of my mind. I didn't feel like myself, like outside of myself, and just was in pain. And when I researched it, I discovered that you can do chemical damage
Sure.
to your brain chemistry.
Yeah, dopamine and serotonin and everything else, yeah.
And not just the regular stuff. I mean, you can do permanent chemical damage to your mind.
Right, neural pathways can be completely damaged.
And you can bring on even it's called drug-induced psychosis.
Correct.
You permanently go into a state of severe mental illness.
Yes.
There's drug-induced schizophrenia.
Analgesic rebounds. Yeah, I mean, yes,
And
huge.
so I don't know what exactly it was so long ago, but I mean, I was hallucinating a lot. I was, but just I felt like I was in hell. I felt like I was being tortured all day. That's the best way I could describe it. And I didn't know anyone I could tell about this or get.
Sure.
There was nowhere I could go to turn for help. And so that's why I just, out of a lack of options, I tried that as more like a comfort blanket, right? Like a self-soothing thing.
Right.
There's nothing else I could do. I was powerless. But I was in an emergency situation. And that moment that happened to me, I was instantly healed. And it felt like a sensation inside my brain and in my skull.
Right.
Like something was shifting around.
Yes.
And then I was all of a sudden felt perfectly normal and better than I had ever felt. And it permanently for the rest of my life.
You're not alone. And alcoholics call it a moment of clarity, but that's not what we're talking about. But I know what you're talking about. 17 years of just eating pills that if I took even a tenth of what I took, I'd be dead right now.
Right.
And I was habitual, but then turned into an addict and absolutely a recovering addict.
Yeah.
Body fat was up to 51%. I got to 265 pounds.
Yep.
3-level fusion, 15 back surgeries.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
all of it. So I just, one day I woke up and I got a phone call and I flushed it.
Good for you.
Oh yeah. Well, but I searched for help. There was no help.
Yeah.
Parents wouldn't be understanding.
Yeah.
My mother was an addict. My sister was an addict. I tried to go to rehab. They wanted $40,000. It's in California. It's just ridiculous. There was no help. I had the best insurance in the world. I was working for Apple.
Yeah.
And I sat at the edge of a bed with 9mm, and I was this close.
Yeah.
And something clicked. And 2 months of going through withdrawals, putting teapots of boiling hot water in bathtubs because my legs wouldn't stop shaking.
Wow.
Chipping teeth, losing because you're convulsing so bad. And just the withdrawals were incredible. The one thing I learned is I just said no more. Yeah. And something clicked. I felt, and I didn't find God until, almost 12 years later.
Sure.
But something at that moment felt divine. It's an interesting conversation, and I truly appreciate you sharing it with me.
I want to say one more thing for the listeners about depression.
Yeah.
I don't think depression is sadness. I think depression is a deactivation of the psyche, the subconscious, the emotional system. My opinion is that if your emotional structure, right, from when you can have damage, you can have trauma as a child, you can have whatever.
Sure.
And so these on a subconscious level can create a flow of pain.
Right.
And in my opinion, if the subconscious, the unconscious, and then the conscious pain of life events, right, or substance abuse or whatever,
sure,
hits a threshold on the psyche, on the subconscious, on the emotional engine, there's like a red line. And if the pain gets up to that red line from PTSD or from whatever happened, abuse, whatever, then it goes into a shutdown cycle where it shuts itself down into idle so that you can sort of recover.
Sure.
And I think that's my opinion on what depression is. So whatever it is, there's many things that can cause your system to create a flow of pain.
Right.
And then you can stack pain, right? And it accumulates, it sort of stacks up and overwhelms you. And then sends, in my opinion, that's what then sends us into these depression cycles.
So it's a form of homeostasis. It's a divergence of stimuli that your body can't cope with. It's a form of a coping mechanism or shock.
Yes, in my opinion, and I'm not a doctor.
It sounds better than anything I've heard.
Because depressed is like means where like there's a power button or like a button and you click it and depress it.
Yeah.
Turn it off.
Right.
So it's like your system is shutting itself down. And so it's more like, less like being sad and more like being tired or can't move, can't get the energy to get up and do anything because your emotional engine, your emotional system is on this sort of power down.
Yeah, this pause.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing introducing psychotropic drugs into young kids. I wonder if that possibly could be a part of the downward spiral in this generation.
It's a crime.
It is a crime. My mother and father put me on Ritalin at 13, and then I was on lithium at 14. Adult versions. Chronic nosebleeds. Wake up with my pillow covered in blood.
My God.
Oh, the Ritalin was just destructive. So it's just amazing. You talk about the damage, but I think most people would find that we're probably two highly intellectual human beings but there was a lot of damage too.
You know, what you really needed was a good old trans surgery. That would have fixed you.
Yeah, if they would have removed my penis, I think it would have solved a lot.
That's what all the problem is toxic masculinity.
It's all
between your legs.
If I was more of a woman, I think I probably would have been less emotional.
You know, that would have made you finally feel complete and happy.
I think so. And then what's really great about it is that I would never be able to alter that course of action because the choice was never mine to begin with, which is wonderful. Removing free will.
Yes, and reproduction.
It's all tied together.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a culture warrior now?
I'd like to be, sure. I'd like to fight for the culture and for our Western values and for our systems. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm on a crusade to preserve and protect Western civilization and prosperity and freedom and our Christian roots. That's all that we've got. If we lose that, and maybe who knows what level of influence I'll affect. I don't care if it's small or big or medium. I've just got to do the best I can do for my own conscience. That, you know, these forefathers did what they needed to do in their generation, and if you don't have at least a certain number do it in every generation, you lose it. The bad guys win.
Yeah. So let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just get right into it. Is this why Israel is a target? It's because they are the only bastion of Western civilization in a place that is full of heathenistic principles and beliefs.
Well, I think that's a complex answer. I think that Israel is a target for a couple of reasons. The main being tribal warfare.
Sure.
You have tribal warfare in these very ancient bloodlines and family groups in the Middle East that go back thousands of years.
Sure. That describes the dichotomy of the Middle East.
Right.
I'm talking about the world.
What you have, in my opinion, Israel has the state of Israel, obviously, just like the United States, there's different political parties with different ideologies that get into power.
Absolutely.
And depending on who's in power, that's the agenda that is set out. But for survival or for dominance or to win, whatever it is, there's there appears to be a strategy of dominance in the Middle East. And the feeling, the behavior tends to be that you have to keep certain quote unquote aggressive Muslim state factions destabilized, and so they can sort of never really get ahead, never really get to a point where they've got to put together enough, maybe to be a threat or maybe to compete with you. Sure, no. And then there's other Muslim nations where there are these loose alliances, or there's these tenuous alliances which are in place. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if it's directly down like Shia and Sunni dividing lines, or if it's more the ones that wanted to become like secular republics, which seems to be the ones that were targeted versus the monarchies,
right,
that are more in line with the Western banking power. But I think the other thing is the Western banking power. And so I think that the Western banking power sees the nation of Israel as a forward operating base in a resource-rich gold mine of the Middle East and then Africa.
Okay.
And so if you're going to control the resources and profit from them and control them, then essentially, your interests have to align.
Right.
And so I think that's sort of the bigger picture. Now you have a group that's in there now that are heavily for the ethno-state. I know there's a coalition. They have a parliamentary system. You have the Likudniks, and then you have these these, they call them far right, but I think they're more like more intensive Jewish supremacists,
right?
ethno-states.
Funneled by the Hasidic Jews, and Talmud is what you hear from the ultra right.
But I think that there's a couple big mistakes that are happening where everybody's clumping together a group as they're all one homogenous thing. They're all very different. There's different factions, different groups, and I think it's regrettable that what's being done in Gaza, and then the instigations in these other regions is really starting to affect the public sentiment in the West, Europe and America.
It's interesting when you think of what happened on Iraq.
Yeah.
And you take a look at Clinton, you take a look at Obama, and you take a look at Bush, and over 1 million Muslims eradicated.
Yeah.
The United States was involved with that.
Yeah.
And you really didn't hear any public outcry until OIF, and after 9/11, which is interesting. Do you believe that anti-Semitism is a threat to Western civilization? And I'll qualify that question. I'm pretty confident you believe that Israel has an absolute right to be its own sovereignty and be a sovereign country and sovereign nation.
Sure.
They have a right to live and exist.
Of course.
But do you think anti-Semitism is an existential threat to Western civilization in any way, shape, or form? And I'm not going to explain.
Anti-Semitism.
Sure. See, that's the
They're
question.
changing the meaning of anti-Semitism.
Sure they are.
Which is a tactic of the left to change the meanings of words.
Sure.
To deceive the public.
So how about we do this? How about we define anti-Semitism the best way that we can from the actual literal meaning, and then we can kind of define whether it would be a threat to Western civilization. So your definition of anti-Semitism is what?
Well, I will just tell you that my understanding is that somebody that was, had a racial animosity towards Jewish people,
right?
That they just hate Jews. That was my understanding my entire life. Now they're changing the meaning that if you don't support Israel, or
right,
if you boycott Israel because of what they're doing in Gaza, if you disagree with their international policy, if you criticize, I don't know if this is part of the writing, but if you criticize certain high-profile Jewish celebrities, bankers or business people or politicians, then that's anti-Semitic. And I think that's too far.
I agree. I think you said it best, is that you have an ethnocentric and a theological-centric people, as Muslims and Jews are, and they're closely knit and tied. I mean, separating their race and ethnicity from their religion is impossible.
Yeah.
And I think subjugating or persecuting anyone based upon ethnicity or religion would be the definition of anti-Semitism. Put a period at the end of that. And I love the fact that you have expanded it to anything that is critical of the state of Israel or prominent figures is anti-Semitism is a canard. And I think it is completely a fallacy that you should not be able to. But if you start off the conversation with that Jew, or using some of the monikers that we know are used, I think that pretty much states your position isn't about questioning actions, but questioning someone's ethnicity or religion is a bad thing.
Sure.
But if you want to say that Israel has killed 40,000 children, and I understand that October 7th was a horrific event, and I agree. However, you can denounce Hamas and denounce October 7th, but also be critical of the way that the Israeli government are prosecuting this war, that is not anti-Semitic in any way, shape, or form.
Well, Hamas is not all the Palestinians. And the Palestinians are not all Hamas. And I want to say Netanyahu and the Likud and his coalition, his radical coalition, are not all Jews. And not all Jews are Netanyahu and his coalition.
That's absolutely correct. Some are Muslim. There's Orthodox. You're right.
I mean, it's completely insane to absolutely combine these two and say, oh, you're either this or that, and this is everything. It's not everything. No.
That's right. That's right.
No.
So the reason I asked that question is it seems that this has become American politics. Very similar.
It's come to the surface. It's a hot topic right now for sure.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking about you're on one side or the other. You're rooting for a sports team. This is no longer about political ideology. This is about wearing a color. This is Crips and Bloods personified without the street gangs and crack cocaine.
Yeah.
We have come to this point where here's the preface of the conversation. Is if you take a look at Republican conservatism and Democrat liberalism, which is both are founded from the same place of classic liberalism.
Yeah.
They're both essentially different heads of the same snake.
Yeah.
If you look at the differences between those two parties 25 years ago, there was about 7 major differences: bigger government, taxes, military buildup, small government versus big government. You understand. But now if you look at the expansion of what politics covers, and if you look at conservatism and you look at liberalism, you're talking 40 to 50 different things that are all diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
And it has now become that you agree with all, or you're the enemy, or you agree with nothing. Do you find that it's not necessarily that it's the Jews versus the rest of the world, but this is the state of the world today, is that we have literally went into a left and right mentality in everything that we do, from our music to our food to our what we consume to the conversations that we have. Is this the systemic problem, or is it something deeper?
How so? The Israel topic in general?
Yeah, just is like, for instance, picking Hamas. Everyone's Hamas if you don't agree with Israel, and everyone is for Israel if you don't agree with Hamas. That's everything's been put down to a simplicity of black and white.
Right. So that's part of the core premise of my book.
Yeah.
Right. Is I reject false arguments, and I reject false premises because it's a mental trap.
Sure it is.
So I reject the redefinition of anti-Semitism, and I reject the sort of unilateral aggregation of all these different groups into one thing.
Yeah, one category.
Yeah, and they're different. And so you can disagree with a political party that is in power over the nation of Israel without being anti-Israel or anti-Jewish people.
Sure.
I think a lot of the Jewish people I know, a lot of them disagree with what's happening in Gaza and disagree with Netanyahu, never liked Netanyahu.
Sure.
Just like, some people like Trump but don't like Trump, or Bush, they didn't like Bush. They liked or didn't like Obama. It's just a democratic leader. So, but this, is this affecting culture? Is this becoming, this is swallowing some people's minds, because.
Sure it is.
Because I think there's, at the fabric, when you go back to the base layer of Western civilization, okay? Western civilization is a mixture of Christianity and Greek philosophy, okay? That then evolves and through these various Enlightenment movements and whatnot to then become this modern form, this modern iteration we have today.
Sure.
But when you go back before the Christian era, then it goes and has its roots in Old Testament Judaism. And back to Jerusalem and back to the Holy Land.
Sure.
And so everything sort of springs out of that for the Arabs, for the Jews, for the Christians, which then is Europe and the Western. So you can't get away from it.
No, you can't.
It's the epicenter of a lot of psychological elements of Western culture and Eastern and Middle Eastern culture. Maybe it doesn't mean much to the Asians and whatnot. They don't maybe have a deep links to that conflict, to that land, but we do. And somehow this movement and then the anti-movement just seems to swallow people and cultures whole. And so we saw this in Russia, and then it migrated over to Germany in the early 1910s when they published the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and then that that propaganda material then goes and takes over the Nazi sentiment, and they republish it, and like the whole nation believes this document.
Right.
Henry Ford reprints it for the Americans, and he believes it, and he supports Hitler. And then you have these terrible outcomes. And then we have all of Western culture has this come to realization of this is, what has happened here.
Right.
This is too far.
Sure.
And so you have this massive reversal and compensation for that. But now it's very strange to me that in the conservative movement now, even the ideas, the ideology of the protocols of Zion are emerging and being bought into.
Right.
And the Jewish conspiracy now are even in globalism are a lot of central banking globalists.
Yeah.
You have Germans, you have English.
Right.
Some are Scottish. Some are Jewish.
Sure.
You have everybody.
It's almost like the Bolshevik Revolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though they blame it all on the Jews primarily, because yes, there were Jews involved.
Russians, there was Jews.
Everybody.
Right, and Marx was Jewish.
Yes.
And so at the top of these movements, you have a fair amount of Jewish people.
Right.
That represents less than 0.01% of the Jewish population.
Correct.
Most Jewish people are wonderful, regular people like you and me.
Yep.
And they have nothing to do with it. And by the way, our groups from our ethnicities are also represented in these corrupt establishment circles, and are doing just as much evil to our society, to our civilization.
Do you think it has to do with religious ideology, a lot of this, simply because of what the Bible talks about, and talks about that the Jews are the chosen people, but also that they betrayed Christ and Christ's forgiveness and understanding of Judaism and the people of Judea? Is it a jealousy? I understand what we're saying, right? There's no reason you can't criticize the Israeli government. There's no reason you can't even criticize portions of the Jewish religion, which I think Hasidic Jews and the Talmud are extremists, but I also think Opus Dei is also extreme, and right. Several others. But do you believe that there is jealousy towards Israel when it comes to a theological perspective that might be driving some of this from worldwide perception?
Well, there's different groups. You have the tribal groups that are like family groups in the Middle East, but then in the West, you have it's more like along religious groups and political groups.
Uh-huh.
And so, depending on what group you're in, there's different history, either alliances or enmity.
Sure.
And so if you're in this particular group, you might have some old beef with
right.
Certain Jewish groups and whatnot. If you're with this one, you love them. You want to give them money and put a blanket on them and take care of them. And right, just depends on which group you're in.
Do you think people like Nick Fuentes, Stu Peters, even Candace Owens, Hodge twins, these people are starting to embrace that more of extremist side towards Jews? Do you find this concerning in the conservative movement that we're seeing this, or do you think this is a natural progression of what you talk about in your book? I mean, this is what it's designed to do, is sow some form of divide.
There's two things. Well, there is a natural reaction. A lot of these people have been burned by, like Kanye, Candace, Fuentes. They've been burned by Jewish individuals.
Sure.
Right, and so they're reacting to it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you dig in, as you're putting the puzzle together, there is a banking cartel. That's real.
Sure.
There is a globalist ideology.
Mm-hmm.
That's real too. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of strange things practiced by these groups, or this group.
Right.
Okay, that's real. Mm-hmm. And certain percentage of them are English, like I said, all these German, whatever,
right.
Italian,
whatever. Yep.
and a number of them are Jewish. But again, they don't practice Judaism. They happen to just be Jewish descent.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there's a Jewish conspiracy. There is a globalist conspiracy.
Sure.
There's a globalist agenda, but they just fixate on that. That's this whole mentality, this whole ideology of this protocols document and the ideas that it promotes.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the Jews that are participating in that are representative of the Jewish people.
Right. On the line of phylum, class, order, species, it's way down the line is their religion, because there's so many other things and ideologies or personal beliefs or credo that they emulate that don't even touch religion.
I believe in one human family.
Explain that. Well, I know you already did, but explain it again.
I mean, anytime it starts to go into this, thing of against this group or against that group, we do have differences. There are religions at odds with each other, ideologies, nations at odds with each other.
Sure.
I always try to go back to, but we're all one human family, right? We're all human beings. We're all here,
right,
dealing with very similar things and facing challenges where there's socioeconomic strata. There's all these differences. We're all very different, and there's different groups. But at the end of the day, we all are in one way or another, part of one human family.
Sure.
And so I think that clears a lot of that away. Now, are there real threats? There's real threats, but I don't think it's these groups. I think the real threat is and always has been a corrupt establishment.
Yeah.
And a corrupt establishment is typically not an ethnic group.
No, not at a large scale.
No. And
maybe at a smaller scale.
What Thomas Jefferson says, and I quote it in the prologue or the introduction, he says, the conflict today is the same as it has always been.
Right.
Whether men will be ruled by a small elite or whether they will be free to govern themselves. Right. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. And I take those marching orders directly from... I think that's the conflict. It was the conflict then. It was the conflict during the Renaissance and the Reformation.
Sure.
And it's the conflict today. And yeah, if they can throw us off their scent trail and have us go after the Iraqis or go after the Afghanis or the Taliban or go after Al-Qaeda, maybe we should go after Al-Qaeda and ISIS, right? But not invade and stay for 20 years. But a lot of times they're funding and propping up these groups.
Oh, yeah, it's worth
so that we have someone to go after and be afraid of. So I think it's much more complex, but I think it's a big mistake when we forget we are all part of one human family.
It's interesting. It brings us back full circle to the beginning of our conversation where, what is past is prologue. And are we truly just in the exact same state we were from the feudal period to the Renaissance to after the Age of Enlightenment to the Golden Era to the Industrial Revolution? There's always haves and have-nots. It's interesting. I've just seen a trend that there is a group of what are considered conservatives that sound an awful lot like leftist ideology. And it's concerning to me because I don't believe... Well, let me ask this. Fascism and socialism or communism, do you think that there is a difference between the two? Because
there are nuanced differences.
Sure there are. But there is this belief that somehow they are on the opposite sides of the political spectrum. And I would love to get your take on it. Do you think
that's another false premise?
Yes, it is. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because East Germany overnight embraced communism like that.
Sure.
So, but go ahead, walk us through that, and then we're going to shift to something else.
I mean, it's an infantile argument.
It is.
That communism is about like trade unions,
right? Redistribution, state-owned,
and fascism is about nationalism.
Right?
No. Fascism was about superiority. They believed there was one superior breed or nation, and it was called National Socialism because they believed it. But they were creating a global empire.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't really restricted to one nation. They were expansionists.
Sure.
They wanted to take Europe and take the world.
Right.
They were, in a way, like a proto-globalist occult movement.
Uh-huh.
And so Hitler he has a mixture. He's like a mixologist. He's bringing in theosophy from Blavatsky's writings, and he's bringing in socialism from Karl Marx, even though he hates Karl Marx because he's racist and he hates Jews, and Karl was a Jew. So he hated the person, but he adopted the belief system and the policies.
The control, right.
Yeah. And so when you have, it's very simple. The left and the right is a spectrum of freedom on the right and tyranny on the left. And the bigger and the more authoritarian the government, you're on the left.
That's right.
And the smaller and the less spending and the more individual liberty, you're on the right. And in the middle are the people who want to strike some sort of balance.
That's right.
That's right and left dynamics, not, oh, you're nationalistic. So all the people on the right are nationalists.
We're a workers' party.
It was the DAP, the German Workers' Socialist Party.
Right. It's in the name. I mean, the last time I checked, it's in the name. To break it down even further, individualism versus collectivism.
Sure.
In its simplest form. Sure. I mean, and that's what defines conservatives versus liberals.
Modern conservative, yeah.
Well, the hope of modern conservative, because I think we forget.
Right.
There's been a lot of ballooning of government and growth of government and a lot of conservative principles that have been abandoned. I don't recognize the Republican Party and the GOP of when I was a kid. Yeah. Some of those things are good.
Right.
Those are great, especially the amount of wars and overall futility of it all, of just constantly throwing money overseas into an endless war system.
Yeah.
But smaller government, the last few Republicans have not created smaller government.
No.
Religious liberty, focus on freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the party of civil rights and free speech and the NAACP and ACLU and gun enthusiasts, I mean, liberals were never against guns. Liberals were never against borders. It has really changed. Something fundamentally changed. And you talk about it in your book, and it really lays the groundwork. And if anyone is having these same type of questions, it's right there.
The answers are there.
They are.
And the research is there.
You just have to, find them.
Yeah.
That's not that hard. You want to take a quick break and then we'll come back?
I'm good, but if you want to take a break.
No, I don't take breaks. The book they didn't want written. There was a guy. He was a great salesman. He was sued. But do you remember he's like the things that they don't want you to know about? And he did those infomercials.
Yeah.
And he said, the 10 things. And then what this guy said was, hey, you have heartburn.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take an antacid tablet. Introduce more acid.
Yes.
And the additional acid, it's your body is not producing enough gastrointestinal acids, so it can't process the food. So it's creating more gas, and that's giving you acid reflux. So drink orange juice, and introduce acidic vinegars. And doctors are like, no, this is absolutely the opposite of what you should do if you have acid reflux.
Yeah.
And this guy went on TV and he the 10 things they don't want you to know about. And he sold these books and he made millions of just grifting people. And then he came out, the 10 secrets to the stock market. And I'll introduce him into the show and everyone will recognize him.
Yeah.
Because he was the Ronco of grifters.
Yeah.
This book, most assuredly, is the book they don't want you to know about. And you can take that title and slap it on here, because this is why they don't want to know about Saul Alinsky. They don't want you to know about Maoism. They don't want you to understand about Darwin. They don't want you to understand about Voltaire and all of the things that we've seen. Why is this book so damn important for people to read? And just give me the cliff notes of why every American should read it.
Because they need to be deprogrammed, and they need to get caught up on everything they've missed so they can be fully educated and equipped to make great political decisions in order to guide our country to success and not failure.
Do you think it's just political? Do you think that there is some hidden nugget in there that can create a better spiritual version of yourself by reading the book?
Absolutely. I have a section in the book where I cover the two movements that led to the revolution.
Right.
One was the Great Awakening, which was a Christian renewal revival movement that came out of England, Oxford, England, and then spread throughout England and then came here to the 13 colonies. It probably had a larger impact here and helped forge our national identity and cement our demand for liberty and independence. That came out of that movement. And nationwide, across the colonies.
Sure.
Then you had this movement of the Enlightenment in England and France, where new ideas were coming together as people were trying to ascertain the truth of things, the truth of science, the truth of nature, the truth of government, the truth of economics. And from that, we get the ideas that formed the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and then also inform free market capitalism. 1776, we had the Wealth of Nations written, and so all of these ideas are coming together at one moment. So you always have two movements. Man has two powerful elements to him. Okay, he's got a spiritual nature, a spiritual component to his being, but then he's got a dynamic consciousness. So these are the two primal elements of the human being. And so in history, in the modern era, there's always been two movements to fulfill or bring to fruition the next level for Western civilization, to take us spiritually to the next level, and then consciously, psychologically, mentally to the next level. Okay? And you differentiate spirituality and consciousness. Yes, of course. So consciousness has to do with matters relating to the mind, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, and all the anatomical qualities of the psyche. Sure. And then that relates to the elements of life, the rudimentary and everyday elements of life. The main categories of that is art, science, governance, and business, and then consciousness itself. Where are you coming up with those? Or who came up with those? Those are my categories. Those are yours. So the Maslow hierarchy of needs is not even in that equation. Food, water. Well, no, that's safety. An individual. I'm talking about civilization. So, I see what you're saying as a collective. Thank you. So as we're coming out of the Dark Ages, you have these big breakthroughs, right? The printing press, and you have Martin Luther hearing that just shall live by faith on those steps in Santa Scala. Yep. Right, and then you have the Medicis translating ancient Greek texts into Latin and Italian and whatnot. And then you have this explosion. So you have two movements. You have a Renaissance, which is the proto-Enlightenment. So that's the European civilization bursting forth into their next level, their next dimension in the sphere of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So we have these great breakthroughs in governance, art, science, and our understanding of the psyche. Okay? Copernicus. Yep. Right? You have all these things. But then, simultaneous to that movement up in Germany, Martin Luther rediscovering the salvation experience that they didn't know about for 1,000 years, like in any major quantity. Right, or form, yeah. And so he rediscovers this and redistributes it out to the people. Okay, so that's the spiritual component. That's the spiritual breakthrough. Got it. Okay? Now, it doesn't take you all the way. It just takes you to your next level. Right. So then, a couple hundred years later, we're ready. Now, society has sort of mastered that, absorbed and digested and incorporated all that. Now they're ready to go to the next level of societal evolution. And so that's when in the 1700s, you have two more virtually simultaneous. You know, there's some decades there, but very close. And so you have the Great Awakening, which again is a very similar thing, but now it's taking it to the next level and that's with George Whitefield. And that starts when this woman tries to commit suicide in the river over in Oxford where he's going to college. And she fails, and they fish her out of the river because her husband's in prison and she can't feed the kids and they're starving, so she's in despair. Mm-hmm. And she goes looking for George Whitefield, and he runs right into her, and he gives her some money, and they go to the prison, and he reads John 3:16 to them, and the woman goes, "I believe I can have this everlasting life." And something starts to happen to her. She starts going through this transformation, this euphoric experience. Then the husband says, "Oh, I believe too." He catches it, right. He gets it. Whitefield doesn't know what's going on. He goes back home. He's praying about this. He's trying to understand this. He says, "You know what? I'm going to have a simple faith." He's reading this book about the inner life and the outer life. You have a form of religion, but not have anything going on. You know, no experience, inward connection. And he says, I want it too. I can have it too. Does it happen the same? It happens for him too. Yeah. And so he goes and starts preaching it. They kick him out of all the English Anglican churches. So he does it in the fields and the highways and the byways, and all the working class come out to see him. And thousands, tens of thousands of people come to Christ. And then he's drawn to the colonies, comes here. He preaches to 80% of the colonies. He clears out whole towns. He was the first superstar, any type of superstar. Right. And he links up with Franklin. Franklin's publishing all his sermons.
Right.
He's spreading the revival. And America goes through this great revival, and they experience salvation. And now once they have salvation, they go, oh, we don't need, when the Pilgrims got salvation and the Reformers and the Lutherans got salvation in Germany, they went, we don't need a pope.
Right. We
don't need a priesthood. We can get it directly.
Right.
And when the Americans, colonists experience, they go, we don't need a king. We already have one. We'll take a governor or president. We don't want a king anymore. We only have one king. Right? They wanted freedom. So that movement's happening. That's them going to the next spiritual level. But then you have the Enlightenment, where now the consciousness aspect of man is now going to the next level. Here's what's interesting. So now, 250 years later, it's happening again. Okay, so we're in the beginnings of a great spiritual movement, and then we're also having this huge burst. And we've had more enlightenments, like the Industrial Revolutions, the information era.
Sure.
But now we're having this great enlightenment right now.
Yes, we are. Numbers are there.
And so consciousness is going to the next level. And what I mean by that, the understanding of the psyche, okay? The mind and the psyche. AI, technology, which is science, technology, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's science, okay? Governance and business, going through a revolution. And then art. You'll see the arts, right? An explosion of art. So that's what happens. And they're usually within a decade or two of each other, or simultaneous. This is how Western civilization has progressed.
Do you talk about, I can't remember, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and all of this? That's also a part of that Great Awakening?
They were part of the burst, like the breakthrough in art under the Medicis, who were patronizing them during the Renaissance out of Florence, Italy.
I just don't remember if you talked about it or not.
I don't, there's too much to cover.
I know that. So that's why the woke mind virus is. Can you pluralize viruses?
How long do you want the book to be?
That's what we do on my show is people are like, well, Matt, why don't you go into this? There's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
Listen to this conversation. This could branch off to 100 episodes. This is why when we talked about long form podcasts, I was like, yeah, this makes sense that you and I could probably do a long form.
Sure.
And vice versa. I wouldn't always have to be in the seat. I would like to be on the other end of the spectrum at some point.
Yeah.
Let's dive into Epstein.
Sure.
Because this is where I consider myself a historian. I don't think that I have the breadth of knowledge that you do. I think you understand, this topic better than anybody that I've ever met. And this is why I'll have a prostate position of listening to you and a deference towards you, because you understand it. And when we get into the political spectrum and we get into more of the more recent current events, I think it's going to offer a perspective to the audience so they can hear you correlate the book to some of the things we're seeing. And the Epstein thing is very interesting to me. One is what's happened now is that there is a lot of misinformation that is leading people down to different conclusions that are accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a topic that the right has understood fairly well. They've lived it for the last 10 years. They cared about it when the left didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that the left they are immersed in this. They are covered in the stink of Epstein.
Yeah.
But as we know, America in this country only cares about politics for about 3 to 4 months out of every 4 years. They just don't care. They don't care about the primaries. Mm-hmm. They don't care. The general election is really all they show up to. And they start turning on the TV around August and start consuming, and they get there, they go to the trough and they get fed their stuff, and then all of a sudden they're experts, and they come back and then they go punch their ticket at the polls and then come home.
Yeah.
But the average layman, liberal Democrat, is just learning about this because they've assigned Trump that he's a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
And this gives them the ammunition to go ahead and go on the forums and social media and espouse atrocities towards Trump for the latest and greatest flavor of the week.
Yeah.
The long way around the barn around this. I'd love to get your take on this. How do you feel as a voter? How do you feel as a Trump supporter?
Yeah.
About the things he said about Epstein? And, you know, I understand people are saying that he trashed his supporters and called them, you know, fools and idiots and all. And that's not what happened. But I want to get your feeling minus all the noise.
Yeah.
And then let's reintroduce the noise so we can have a really good conversation about it.
Yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts on this.
Good. Go figure. You're not an opinionated guy. I've noticed that.
Well, I will say this. Trump and Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are really honest people.
Yeah.
They're good people.
Yeah,
They're trying to do important work to save the country.
Sure.
I fully support them. But God, are they terrible liars. I mean, they're the worst liars ever because they're honest, good people.
Yeah.
Right? And so when they're trying to deflect and deny things, they're not good at it. They look like this.
No, they were no. Bongino looked like literally like he was. It was like Stockholm syndrome. It's like he literally.
Poor Bongino.
You know what he looked like?
Yeah.
You know what he looked like? He looked like Marina Oswald after the FBI had her for 6 months and then released her on the public. I mean, he looked like he was pumped full of tranquilizers and electroshock treatments.
Wait. Epstein.
Yeah.
You still talking about this guy?
Yeah.
That creep?
Yeah.
I mean,
it was pretty bad.
It's bad.
It was pretty bad. Why did you do it? Why did Trump? I mean, let's just get to it. Why did he do it? Why did he didn't reverse because he never promised. He was actually very coy about it through the 6 years. He hit him on a rally or two.
Yeah.
But he did say we should take a look at it. They asked me to release JFK. I said, yep. J6, yep. MLK, yep. And once they got to Epstein, he said, yes, but.
Right. He hesitated.
He hesitated and said, but as long as it's factually accurate, because there was a lot of misnomer in there. There was a lot of accusations that weren't true. And he always held that premise. But we know his entire administration was like, we're going to release the Epstein files.
I'll start with this.
Sure. Go ahead.
Trump has been accused falsely of every horrible thing you can imagine.
Oh, yeah. Everything.
He's been falsely accused, investigated to the nth degree. In every case, every investigation, he's come out clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
Innocent. Now, I know there were some weird convictions on some New York. They have no credibility.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Misdemeanors, 34 charges. Essentially, take a spreadsheet, go on Excel, put the same incorrect typo, go ahead and do it 34 times, and charge you with a felony when it's past the statute of limitations, and create new laws to do so. You and I both know it's bullshit.
So I'm just going to say this for the record, that I will give Trump the benefit of the doubt that he's clean.
You should.
Okay?
You should.
He has given me no reason to think anything other than that.
Right.
Was he a billionaire playboy for decades?
Yep.
Yeah. Did he have a bunch of failed marriages? Yeah, he owns up to that.
He does.
Do I think he was breaking the law with Jeffrey Epstein? No, I don't believe he was. And I don't think there's evidence of that. And if we see this letter or these different things that they're trying to leak out to the media, it's a joke.
Sure.
In my mind, it's a joke. So I'll say that. I'll also say this. I think this is the really important point.
Okay. I'm listening.
Everybody is getting lost and getting diverted about what's going on, what we're up against. Let me make it clear. There is an international central banking cartel that controls the economic system in the West.
Okay.
All right? This is what their interests are, not the interests of the people, workers, citizens. They do not share our interests. They're at odds with us.
Mm-hmm.
They are stealing from us and they are abusing their power, and they've got to go. And we want them gone. We want to fire them.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that, we are in various Western countries, we're forming populist movements to elect champions into office to perform a massive reform and dismantle this hierarchical structure. That's what we're trying to do. Now, that being said, I go into the history of globalism. I go into their origin story. I go into their belief system. I go into all their teachers, their founding fathers. I do all that, right? So the globalists operate. They created the Western spy agencies. Okay, Lord Milner, Alfred Milner, okay, he starts the War Cabinet. He's heading up the War Cabinet. He's leading the globalist order. after the death of Cecil Rhodes, okay? And that is the creation, the genesis of all of the modern intelligence agencies. And so how do they utilize these? Well, they depose people, they overthrow governments, they destabilize countries where they want to come in and get the resources. They do whatever's in their interest. They fulfill their interests, and these are their tools, okay? How do they maintain control? Well, they do it largely through bribery and blackmail.
Okay.
A monarchy is a lot easier to control because you just have to control one family. Maybe you have your kids marry their kid. There's different things you can do.
Right.
Democracies are very complicated. There's lots of elections. There's lots of moving parts. So what's the number one method they found, an effective method to control a democracy? Bribery and blackmail typically through the intelligence agencies that are supposedly there to represent our interests abroad.
Okay, so which agencies?
You name it.
Well, I can't name it. This is your thoughts.
You have CIA, MI6, Mossad.
Okay.
And so there's a long history.
But not national agencies. We're not federal agencies. We're not talking about FBI. We're not talking about ONI. We're talking about CIA. Oh, those two.
Sure, yeah.
FBI. Okay. All right.
And so you have these, like the National Security Act and these different things that allow them to create this confidential structure of evidence, right? What does that mean? It means if your team is committing crimes, you can make it confidential.
Correct.
You can seal it.
Sure.
You can decline to prosecute them.
Correct.
And so therefore you can commit unlimited crime.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem with it.
Yeah.
It should be illegal.
Sure.
And so from the Dutroux affair in Belgium to various orphanages throughout the UK and Northern Ireland, into all these different cases, there is a pattern of intelligence agencies using the trafficking and sexualization of children and prostitutes to blackmail, you name it, elected officials, judges, business people, you have it. And so this is the number one most effective way to, if you want to establish covert control over a republic, a democracy, this is the number one proven way to do it. And it's been done for a long time.
Uh-huh.
Many cases have been outed, but the Franklin scandal, I mean, people can go look these things up. This is not fiction.
It's not conspiracy theory. No, it's not.
So Whitney Webb wrote 2 great volumes on this, One Nation Under Blackmail, and she does a thorough breakdown.
Okay.
Fantastic author and researcher. Okay. So this cannot stand, but I'm getting to a point.
No, I know that.
The fact that they're using this method to control and to commit unspeakable crime and to maintain their stranglehold on our system so that our elected officials ultimately serve them, their interests and their bills and their appropriations and their money laundering schemes are legalized and passed by our Congress, by our representatives. See what I mean?
A little.
Okay. So if you want to deconstruct that and break that down, like Trump said, he said, I'm going to dismantle the deep state.
Right.
Right. And he said, we're going to, I don't know exactly what words he said, but
you're
we're going
paraphrasing.
to cripple, the spirit of the idea was that we'll cripple the globalists and the globalist establishment.
Right.
And he's done a great job pulling us out, minimizing our participation in the UN and NATO and then pulling out of UNESCO and
NWO and everything. Yep.
And all
WEF. Yep.
Okay. So that's great, but that's temporary. As soon as they get another puppet in, we're right back in. Okay, funding everything. But if you want to really bring it down and turn the public against them permanently and have a new era of real representative self-government, well, all you have to do is expose the Epstein scandal. All you have to do is out the network and the clients.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a ton of the network right there.
Okay.
Here's the problem. Trump's job in this present conflict is to be the champion of the populist movement, come in and do the reforms and have the new next era for America, which will then cascade out to the rest of the West, 60 plus Western countries.
Sure.
That's his job. The job of the establishment is to stop him at all costs.
Correct.
Okay. And they've tried and they keep failing, which is amazing to watch. It's like that.
It's literally an effort in futility. Do you remember the old Spy versus spy cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 50% of the time they were successful. One against the other. Liberals would kill for those numbers. They are literally the coyote versus the road.
It's amazing.
They just fail endlessly.
It's incredible. I think he has Providence on his side.
Well, I think that's a fair assumption, especially after what happened in Butler.
I think it was a miracle.
I can't see it any other way. All right, keep going because I think we're going to be in the same ballpark here.
Okay, so that's really all you have to do. Here's the problem, though. They need to stop him. Okay. And this is a huge risk for them that evidence would be revealed. Okay, so what do they do to stop him? Here's my opinion.
Okay.
You have two 20th century presidents that start to become reformers, and that's a problem. You didn't really have reformers since the late 1800s with Teddy Roosevelt. But two guys get some idea, and they're going to do something, right? And that's first, you have JFK and Nixon, right? So they got to, when they start turning and wanting to take the reins and drive the car and be the president, you got to get rid of them. Yeah. So we know what they did with JFK. We know what they did with Watergate and Nixon. Maybe not everyone knows that was a CIA operation, but it was. And he wasn't part of the break-in, but he was part of the cover-up.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So in my opinion, last July, they tried the JFK playbook on Trump in Butler, and it failed.
So you think crooks, 100% paid asset or government asset?
No, I believe in like 45 coincidences.
Don't get cocky with me.
And removing all the security and the snipers pointing right at him. Don't shoot him.
You don't even. Yeah. I don't even.
I was born yesterday. So yeah, I believe the official story.
Don't get sassy. So we know that, but
so that's the JFK playbook.
Okay.
They did the JFK Hail Mary pass and failed.
What about Routh? What about the second one over in Palm Beach? Think that was also paid?
Well, we know that guy was dealing with the CIA.
Yep.
We know that he was involved in the Ukraine situation. So
we know he understood ballistics, knew how to create a sniper's nest. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that's JFK playbook, honestly. That's my opinion. Okay, I'm speculating.
No, it's okay. That's what I want to get. Go ahead.
Okay. But then now fast forward 12 months, we're in this July. We're in July again. Now I believe they're running the Nixon playbook on Trump. How so? Nixon playbook is 3 steps. First, you have the setup where you plant the evidence or do the setup like Watergate. The second part is to encourage them to cover it up.
Right.
And in the process of covering it up, break some laws.
Yep.
And then third is you use official processes to reveal everything about their cover up.
Right.
And then take them down, the takedown. So here's what I think they're doing.
And then we just got the fourth, and then save him with a pardon shortly after with a new installed president.
Maybe that's a deal if they get him to shut his mouth.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So okay. So you have this Epstein situation, and you have these files that have been in the possession of the deep state.
Right.
And let me also say, there's multiple vaults. Let's say that there's 8 to 10 vaults filled with Epstein evidence.
Okay.
When he goes to the Southern District, when Pam Bondi raids the Southern District of New York and gets that evidence out of there, that office, that's only one vault.
Right.
But that's the poison vault. That's the radioactive vault.
Okay.
So I think it's very likely that they deleted a lot of the incriminating evidence of their group, their interested parties, but planted or left in embarrassing information. I don't think anything criminal is there, but I think embarrassing things might be there because he was friends with him for 15 years.
I absolutely agree with that.
So they can embarrass him, embarrass his family.
And manufacture it as well. Let's not put it past.
Oh, and manufacture.
We know this because this is the
dossier.
This is the intelligence agency hiring an excommunicated intelligence official.
Right.
For the dossier, literally excommunicated from intelligence.
Steele or whatever.
The Steele dossier. And bringing in Steele to run this playbook. It's ridiculous.
So I don't trust that vault. I think that Southern District of New York FBI vault is tainted. Okay. So do I care if they release that? No, because I think it's tainted and most of it's deleted. The stuff we're interested in that would take them down is deleted. Now they're talking about, okay, well, we want Ghislaine to come and testify before Congress.
Yeah.
Why? She's not a credible witness. She's a convicted child trafficker, and she's desperate to get out of jail. She'll do anything to get out of jail.
Right.
If you cut her a deal, she'll say anything.
Sure.
She is not a credible witness, and she it's ridiculous. It's a circus to bring her in there.
Right.
But there are other vaults. The CIA has a vault. Epstein claimed to many, many witnesses that he was working with the CIA.
Right.
That means a lot of that collection and that compromat was going to them. So I believe there's probably a vault at the CIA, maybe at the NSA as well. And Tulsi Gabbard should dig into this and see what she can find there. And then you also have vaults that are sealed, and I don't mean physical vault. I just mean
I know what you're saying.
Metaphorical vault at the two
holder.
courts, where the Ghislaine trial, there's a body of evidence that I think is much more difficult for them to tamper with. And I think we should investigate if it was tampered with.
Sure.
And that's a crime too if they tampered with evidence. And
especially if it's sealed by a grand jury, which it is.
Exactly. And then you have 2 Epstein trials.
Yep.
In the early 2000s, and then the one where he was in prison where he supposedly committed suicide.
Right.
With the famous video. So
2 minutes and 43 seconds missing.
Yeah. So yeah, but nothing to see here. He definitely killed himself. We saw the video.
Hey, you and I both know that at 11:59 to 12 o'clock, that those old VHS and Betamax tapes,
they have to switch over.
You know how many that I had? Dude, we had those at Hollywood Video. And you know what? We put redundancies in after the first time somebody came in at 11:15. So it's all bullshit.
But listen,
it's bullshit.
Just like Butler, it was just 45 really unusual coincidences.
Let's wash it down. You haven't seen this show, but you need to watch it. So I go through and I break down the five basic structures of operational security when you're protecting an HVT. So I've got a few friends in Secret Service and et cetera.
Yeah.
And I just break it down, just the entire it was the biggest shit show I've ever seen. Every single rule about operational security and protecting and being a body man was broken. Even if you see the quick reaction team that was pulled in, even what they were doing, everything was a shit show. But you and I agree on that. Okay, so vaults, New York, we know what's going on in Florida. We know what's going on all over. Mossad, CIA. Keep going.
So Trump and his team are not doing themselves any favors how they were originally handling it, but I think that they've recovered the ball. I think that Trump has been through so much stress, so much. I mean, they've just endlessly assaulted this man over and over again, and I think he's fed up. He's done.
I think he's sick of it.
So now, can we get in? I brought some slides. Can we get into that? What I think he should do to respond, like my proposal to Trump?
No, you know what? I think we're just going to stop. Let's no. Let's
you
go.
You guys don't want to hear it anymore.
No,
right?
You guys have heard enough. Yeah, let's go into it. Walk us through it. And this is great. I'll put up the graphic for everybody so they can see it, and then you can break it down for us.
So, Trump, in his first term, discovered that he had this thing called the pardon power, right? So once he discovered his ability to pardon people that were wrongfully imprisoned, he started using it more and more until he really mastered it. And so coming into office, he pardoned all the J6ers. I mean, he's pardoning to the max.
Yeah.
Okay, because he realized this is my power as a president. He also has the power to fire people, and the courts restored that to him.
Yes, they did.
And so really, it is about him understanding his powers and using them to their fullest, okay? But Trump, a lot of people don't know this, but Trump as the chief executive, Jefferson called him the chief magistrate, which just means it's an old-timey term for the CEO of the country. He runs the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, and all law enforcement. So he is actually the chief law enforcement officer in the country, as well as the commander-in-chief of the military.
Yeah, DOD, yeah.
So all these powers are invested in his office and in him. So he's America's top cop.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And in my opinion, he needs to get pissed. If I do another slide, I might add another slide. Trump needs to go. We want to see Trump go Hulk mode.
Yeah.
He is pissed, and he should be pissed, and he should lean into the anger, but he should direct his anger at the people trying to set him up and trying to destroy our country.
The hunter becomes...
The hunter. The hunter
becomes the hunter. Sorry.
Yeah,
reverse it. Sorry.
So,
that was almost good. I was almost as good as
Trump needs to go Hulk mode. He needs to go after these people aggressively.
Yep.
How? Okay. He's also the top prosecutor. I know he's not a prosecutor, but he's over all the prosecutors.
Yeah, he's the executive branch. He enforces the law.
So he is the top prosecutor and the top cop.
Yep.
So Reagan had his war on drugs. Bush Jr. had his war on terror. It's about time for Trump to announce his war. I think Trump needs to go to war against government crime. And if he goes to war against government crime, he will dismantle the deep state. He will cripple the globalist order, and he will win, and he will cement this reform movement for decades, if not more than many decades. This is possibly the most important thing he can do right now. He needs to go to war on government crime, expose this stuff, open investigations, prosecute these people. How? I recommend that he fully embrace and utilize his prosecutorial power to open investigations, indict people, and prosecute them to its fullness, like he has done with his pardon power. I think he needs to start stretching those prosecutorial muscles and investigation muscles. How does he do it? I think he should hire 21 outsiders. He already started with Ed Martin and Janine Pirro and some others. We need more and Harmy Dillon. We want more conservative, outsider, MAGA, populist prosecutors, not deep staters, not swamp monsters, not these tainted, corrupted lawyers. We want great outsider U.S. officials to come in, and I recommend this is my name for it, but I recommend he call them his hired guns. Trump's 21 guns. Mm-hmm. His 21 hired guns to take on the deep state and take on government crime. You can't call it government corruption, but if you call it crime, the public understands that crime must be punished, that if you do something illegal, you've got to get prosecuted and possibly go to jail.
Right.
Okay. So I think it's got to be government crime, not just corruption. It carries a different meaning. Mm-hmm. And he's got to flex his prosecutorial power. And I have this thing, it's like a bingo card. It's modeled after an evidence board from a police station, but it's just 20 of the maybe 40 or 50 publicly known crimes that we've seen play out on primetime television that we have, a lot of them, we have the evidence for them.
Sure.
And so, for instance, the 320,000 missing children that the New York Post reported on that came over the border and were given to sponsors with no vetting. They lost these children. 21 trillion missing dollars, Act Blue, which was a money laundering operation, Twitter files, open border human trafficking, COVID crimes. And I put a blue check mark like a bingo card over Crossfire Hurricane because that's the only one they're publicly investigating that they're promoting.
Right.
They might be investigating other ones of these, but I think you take these 21 guns, have them each open a huge investigation into each of these crimes and go after them very publicly.
Right.
And punish the criminals if they find that truly criminal activity has taken place.
Yeah.
And restore justice. I like this, that the slogan, Harrison was saying this yesterday, the slogan should be, just like the Democrats had their talking point that 1 month, no one is above the law.
Right.
Nobody's above the law.
That's convenient when they said it for a while. Did you hear this? We covered this last night. But speaking of the 320,000 children, did you know that Biden set up a hotline?
Yes.
And that hotline, well, I'm going to tell everybody. So, because I got to look smart some point in this thing, that Biden set up a hotline to help unaccompanied minors, that they could call in if they needed help once they were delivered, who we know damn well were people that they did not know, that they had, the names of these people pinned to their shirts.
Yeah.
And 65,000, now we don't know how many calls came through.
Right.
But 65,000 calls were ignored and not even answered of children screaming for help. Okay. I grew up in the corporate world. I grew up in the military too, and both are the same way. If I would have done anything remotely like Hillary Clinton, I'd be in Leavenworth for the rest of my life with my TSSCI.
Yeah.
I held a higher clearance than the admiral of my ship, if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
And if I was in the corporate world and I let down 60 customers, I would absolutely be fired and ostracized to the level of neglect that took place. How do you possibly take this level of crime and with the noise from the media and the distractions and the lack of attention span from listeners? 10% of my listeners will listen to this entire thing.
Yeah.
How the hell do we get through all the noise? How is that possible?
Well,
is it literally Trump has to and nobody else?
The public understands the perp walk.
Yep.
They understand the mug shot.
Yep.
Yeah, it's real quick.
Galvanized steel on wrist really makes an impact.
They understand the crying when the judge says you're guilty.
Yeah, don't they? Don't they?
They understand that.
Yeah.
And if someone's committed, they're a bad person, they've committed a crime. That's real clear.
Yeah.
And these people have been so protected with this two-tiered legal system that they've enjoyed as a luxury, a benefit of the job for being corrupt and part of this network for so many decades. They've been committing crimes en masse, in public, boldly, unashamedly. And so we just need some brave, and we need to lionize these people. You know, I thought it was a shame that Elon did so much for the movement, and then I don't feel like he was properly protected or lionized or boosted or whatever it was. I'm not saying the way he reacted was the best way,
Sure.
But I think we can show a little bit more support to the people that are going to put themselves out on a limb for this movement and take at great personal risk and attack.
Yeah. Can we just do me a favor? Can we have lifelong Democrats who all of a sudden flip to conservative? Can we stop putting them in key cabinet positions?
Yes.
Let's stop. Can we stop that shit?
Yeah.
Because it needs to stop. I'm sick of it. And Tulsi Gabbard, okay, you know what? Fine. She did something good the other day, but I'm so tired of these lifelong progressives. Do you know that her voting record, second most progressive legislator in U.S. history outside of Kamala Harris?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, people don't know a lot of things. They don't research. I mean, people look at, here's a terrifying thing. You look at Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
You look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. You look at Lauren Boebert.
Sure.
Okay, and these are icon class of the Republican Party because they're in the media. But do you want to know who out of state legislature and senators? This is gonna blow your mind. I'm gonna put the gun over here. Do you know who voted with Trump more than any other legislator in the last 10 years? Who was rated number 13 out of all legislators over the last 10 years with Donald Trump? Who voted with Trump more than anyone else?
Tell me, no.
What if I told you it was Liz Cheney?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is shocking.
It's not, because you can look up her voting record. But what if I told you that Thomas Massey has voted only 53% of the time with Donald Trump? Would that shock you?
No, that doesn't shock me because Trump has had to do a lot of compromises to get any of his legislation through.
Yeah, but Massey is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He fundraised against Donald Trump. He ran on being obstructionist with Trump. And so my point is that we emulate and admire people who we watch and say, yeah, that's the person.
The rhetoric.
Yeah, they talk so well. But when it comes down to brass tacks, they don't vote with the president of the United States. So my point is, can we just stop putting reformed progressives into key administration spots? That's what I would love to see, number one.
Yeah, but I will be honest. I love the work that RFK Jr. is doing.
Oh, yeah. No. And that is the one. But he wasn't a classic liberal. He's not a leftist.
He had very hard left views publicly for many years.
When it comes to the Big Seven. But I didn't hear him preaching the standard prototypical things that socialists preach or leftists preach. I mean, he was
saying people that violate climate change should be thrown in prison.
Oh, he did, yeah, and he did also said about gun. He also said about gun control and abortions, gun confiscation. Oh, and transgender surgeries. I guess you're right.
Pretty left.
Shit, you're right. You win. We'll give you a win on that one.
I think people can change, but I think a lot of times you have to be careful.
No, they can't. No, they can't. TS. No, they cannot. That's a misnomer, and you know it. You can only use your strengths to, I believe, cover your weaknesses. If you're weak at something, you can develop talent. You can try your best. You can take a complete idiot. You can give them all the textbooks. You can give them all the success. Give them the outfits, and in the end, all you have is a motivated idiot. I don't believe people truly change.
But with ideas, I think some people can finally realize if they've been buying into lies for a long time.
Agree.
They can go, I've been lied to.
They can be awake.
And they can find the truth. Yeah.
So like Dave Rubin, for example, who was on the Young Turks and now is a vastly focused conservative that I've seen. I mean, he's absolutely a conservative. I think you can change your political ideology. Trump is a great example of that.
Sure.
Okay, I'm a great example of that.
Learning,
Right, but what I'm talking about is change. If you're a scumbag and you can't be trusted, I don't believe that is an asset that people can acquire. Once you are who you are, it's hard for me to be. I'm not about a reformist. I don't believe people can reform.
What you're saying about key positions, and I think there's merit to what you're saying. You need to at least be suspicious based on record. Right. You have a record, right? However, when you have in Republican style government, it's not a pretty system.
No.
And it is in democracy, it's all based on the majority. And so you're always going to end up with two coalitions, and it's two clusters of groups. And as one is on the ascendancy, you're always going to have those that are the cynics and the Machiavelli, whatever they are,
Sure.
that are going to eventually just come over to your side because you're winning.
Well, right. Opportunist, Lindsey Graham.
Opportunity, all that. But you can't, you got to feed the greedy with the needy in a way.
I understand.
Because you need that majority coalition in order to hold power.
You and I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the Greeks learned this lesson and the Romans learned it the hard way. I'm with you. I'm with everything you're saying. You've got to throw a hen to the foxes once in a while. I'm with you. I'm here to say that truly people who are inherently bad.
You think Tulsi Gabbard is bad? And
I don't know if I would say that. Let me change this. I believe 2.5 years ago, Tulsi Gabbard was the most progressive politician in Washington, D.C. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump needs people who are fiercely loyal to conservative beliefs, Christian values, and everything that she believed 2.5 years ago was completely antithetical to every one of those. I mean, if I told you her positions, you would...
Yeah, what were her positions?
Sure, let me tell you. Cash bail, scratch it.
Okay.
Abortion, up to, including 9 months.
Okay.
Gun confiscation, all semi-automatic weapons gone.
Okay.
Minimum wage increase.
Yeah.
DOD was one place we agreed that she believed that we should expand Department of Defense and military, which is great. Borders, amnesty, DACA recipients, and also current illegal immigrants in the country.
Yeah.
Tuition reimbursement and loan forgiveness. I could go on and on. She extremely progressive. Now, here's the problem: is a lot of people in my circles know Tulsi Gabbard. So I'm not trying to sabotage Tulsi Gabbard. What I'm saying is that you just specifically said that the intelligence agency is literally blackmailing politicians, Mossad, MI6, SKW, SKK, FIS, all the intelligence agencies. And now you have a person who was one of the most leftist politicians in the last decade, the head of that intelligence agency and apparatus for the United States. I just think that that's a very high risk for very little reward. But I didn't say she's a bad person.
Yeah, I didn't know those were her policy. I don't know if those are, I mean, she had to rep them because she was trying to gain Democratic office, and those are all like pillars of the Democratic Party. I don't know. I know she was always staunchly against the forever wars and the regime change.
She sure was.
And they eventually burned her.
Yeah.
I think because of that and a couple other reasons. I'm not as
It's okay. No.
filled in on her background.
This is not a gotcha. This is something I've covered on my show many times, and this is something that I've got loaded on my hip. But it doesn't mean that that she's the end all be all. Mm-hmm. She may very well be a reformed, recovering leftist, or maybe she's just become more moderate, and maybe that's good enough.
I think the populist movement is in the interest of the people, and really we have a lot more in common with moderates. Mm-hmm. Conservatives and centrists and moderates,
yes,
we need to come together and all be populists.
Yes.
The leftists, the real hard leftists are like less than 20% of the population, but they lie in order to get people to join up with them.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
They've seduced the centrists and moderates for a long time, making them think they are liberals, but they're not. They're centrists.
They're
and
not,
moderates.
not in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And the last thing I'll say about Tulsi Gabbard, and this isn't to rail against Tulsi Gabbard, I'm very happy with what she just did. I thought it took a lot of courage and put a bullseye on her back. It really did. Calling out Obama, that's a dangerous proposition. Just ask the kayak cook. But we all know that in the beginning of this, when Trump went into Natanz and hit Fordow and hit the nuclear sites in Iran, is that Tulsi Gabbard was kind of put on the back burner, and there was some dissension between them, saying that she was wrong when they said that they weren't enriching, uranium, and wasn't involved in several intelligence meetings, and she's DNI. So I think I just want to be cautious is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There are too many wolves in sheep clothing in 2016, 2020 that betrayed Trump, leaked Trump. I mean, my God, how many people betrayed the man? I just
80% of his team.
Yeah, I just want him to be very careful and cautious. That's all I'm saying. And
You know,
he's much smarter than me.
I
So
think there's people that have vouched for her, and so he's giving her a chance. And I think she's been bearing good fruit and performing well. If she stops doing that, I think he should quickly replace people that aren't performing.
So is there anyone in his cabinet that you think should be replaced right now who haven't done the job that you would anticipate? How do you feel Pam Bondi's doing?
I was really disappointed for the first several months with Pam because she wasn't going after these crimes that we have on the scorecard.
Sure.
Right, day one. I wanted her to hit the ground day one.
Me too.
Cash.
Me too.
I wanted to see, announcements, press conferences of investigations.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see arrests. I wanted to see pre-dawn raids, just like they did to our guys.
Oh yeah, pajamas and flip-flops. I'm all down.
And we didn't see any of that. And so I wasn't sure why. But I think maybe Trump has more of a say in what she's doing and not doing than maybe we thought.
And that's interesting considering the separation of powers. And ultimately, the attorneys generals, although does report to the president of the United States,
It's supposed to be independent.
it is supposed to very much be independent.
Right.
But they weaponized.
They're never independent. It's
Not anymore.
They haven't been independent for a long time, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I think it's a nice concept,
Sure. Right.
but ultimately that's their boss. And they have to have the air that they're not involved. But here's the thing: the reform movement will be transient and will temporary and will ultimately fail. And we will continue to have this corrupt cabal over the West if they don't do this last part of the reform movement.
So let's say we start doing the bingo card, right? And let's start. We start seeing J6 fall on there. We look at the Twitter files start falling. We see the Patriot Act and the spying on America, the Snowden files. I mean, we can go on and on and on. That's a conversation I want to have with you next time, Snowden.
Yeah.
Because I want to get your perspective. I think we're diametrically opposed on it.
Probably, yeah.
I guarantee we are.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough is that I always bring both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
And I can see both sides.
Right.
But that's a whole nother one. How are they going to let him? How do you imagine that he's going to survive this? If he starts doing these things and his bingo card starts getting punched, and
he has to do two things.
Yeah.
There's only two ways he's out.
Yeah.
He's got to go Hulk mode and go and attack with these attorneys and start going after their crimes.
Yeah, the U.S. attorneys that you mentioned.
Okay, that's gonna move the public support in his favor, and away from questioning him into being in support, because the public wants to see this done.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of those other vaults, he needs to use his executive power to raid all those other vaults. I'm talking the spy agencies. He needs to break them apart. If they resist him, he needs to fire up to 3 layers down of management leadership.
I got Kennedy killed, brother.
Well, what's worse, getting killed or having your whole legacy destroyed, your reform fail, and your country continue on in subjugation?
Is there anyone else who's going to fill his role and do that? Who's going to carry on his legacy? Do you think J.D. Vance will, or do you think J.D. Vance will be like, fuck that? Pardon my French.
I don't know. I mean, J.D. Vance is very in debt. Well, he's a great guy. I think he's a great speaker. He's talented. He's a great guy. But he has these very suspicious connections to the tech oligarchs.
Yeah,
and none of us trust the tech oligarchs.
No, we shouldn't.
Because a lot of them are globalists.
And he supposedly just met with Murdoch like 2 days before this dropped in Wall Street Journal.
Another globalist. So I mean, this is the thing that this is the same establishment that we're trying to reform.
Right.
So there's question marks there. I think he's a great guy. I don't, there's still, the jury's still out there on certain aspects of his background. But I know one thing's for sure. The populist uprising always produces champions and leaders.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so another champion will emerge for sure. We're certain. But I still think if Trump goes Hulk mode, goes on the attack, uses his prosecutorial power. That's like Excalibur. Not using your prosecutorial power as the president is like a cop who's not using his gun, or a knight or King Arthur that's not using Excalibur. I mean, it's going into battle without drawing your sword.
Yeah.
They're going to battle against him. He now has all the most powerful weaponry, but he's not going to go fight back. It's a suicide mission, position, I guess. So that's the thing, and he's got to raid these other vaults where the rest of the evidence is, not just this one tainted vault that everyone's fixed on. That's not the only place the evidence exists.
Let's do Snowden real quick. Let's do 5 minutes on Snowden.
Okay.
What's your position on Snowden?
Hero. You think traitor, treason?
Oh, I think you can be both. I think the founding fathers were considered traitors, but were heroes. Sure. I think it depends upon what lens we're looking at through. Are we looking at through as an American or a Brit? I made a sacred vow to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I worked intelligence, and I got to see things that I would never reveal.
Yeah.
However, it's one of those things. It's kind of like, where does silence end, or where does sound end and silence begin? That middle portion where they're both the same thing but different. Pre-Snowden, traitor. Post-Snowden, hero. Because the things that were released needed to be released. I think it's not a complete accident that he chose a communist country to be able to go to and run from. And I also believe the highest bidder thought process is also something else. I think he did it for financial advantage, and I also believe that he did it to hurt the United States. Neither here nor there. Motives aside, the absolute atrocities that took place when I was in, and the programs that we used to spy on Americans and completely infringe upon the civil rights and the right to privacy were unbelievably troubling.
Yeah.
What they did with Obama and the Patriot Act and Bush was criminal to a point of treason against their oath for the Constitution of the United States, the American citizen. So let me not just talk out of both sides of my mouth. I believe what he did was treasonous, and it broke his oath, and he violated every single rule in the intelligence community that I respect and uphold till this day. And that means that the honor in the entire event is tainted because of the way he did it. He could have whistleblown. What would have happened? We know what would have happened to him. But there is a process that wasn't followed. And I believe the way he did it was not the way that I would have done it. But I do also know that what he did was extremely necessary to cripple, at least in a temporary way, the trust and belief that the United States people, in a very immature way, endowed upon our government as being trustworthy, because it's not. And throughout history, we know they're not. So that's it. There's my spiel.
What about the people surveilling and recording all of the communications, the cell phone calls and emails and all this of all of the American public domestically, which is illegal and against the Constitution?
Yeah, well,
what about those guys?
But no, it's not, because they hit under the Patriot Act, which essentially, if you said the word Allah, bomb, or you had any relation or delineation to anybody who was committing anything, they could play 6 degrees of separation to justify it. I'm with you. That's
one layer. That's one element.
It's complete crap. I'm with you. 120%.
I think we need to end, and we need to end, and then permanently restrict the government's ability to surveil the people of the United States. I think it's against the unlawful search and seizure.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
And the British military being able to put soldiers up in your house and come in your house.
Ordering of troops, Amendment 3, I know.
Okay,
I'm with you.
So this protects us from such behavior and conduct of the government, and I think it's unconstitutional, and I think this is something that's got to come up. I think we need to deal with the government crime first.
Yeah, well, right, because you're just, it's
one thing at a time.
Yeah, spaghetti at the wall.
But this is a huge threat, because now with that, you don't need to run Epstein operations anymore. You've got all the blackmail you need on anybody you want. It's unlimited blackmail is what it is.
And not only with the collection of information, but where you have the ability to imprint any narrative you want on anyone.
Oh, you can
I know.
implant data.
Just download porn on somebody's computer or financial records. I know, man. Listen, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, for the collective good, Snowden was right. For the collective good. But you have to understand is that I'm a principled man.
No, I get it.
So I have to be able to also see it from that side. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say.
I think it's like this. If you're serving in whatever capacity and they want you to do something illegal, I understand there's a process.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
Or if they want you to then help them violate the Constitution, I know there's a process for that too.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're fearful for your life by doing this and you think that the official processes is so corrupt, you're in grave danger to your life and being
Sure.
by following those processes, then I think it's reasonable to take the extraordinary measures that he took.
I would agree with that if the matriculation process wasn't so farking slow in the intelligence apparatus. It's not like he just came out of the farm and they're like, here you go. Here's the keys. He gradually moved into this position and he got his teeth wet on smaller ancillary type impacts that should have forewarned him of what he was getting into. With every keyword access, with every TSCI read-in, it gets more and more dangerous and you're skirting the lines of illegal activity. It's not like he just was thrown into it, is my point.
Yeah.
And you graduate through the process and you get to see more and more. And then you start to see.
At what point do you become a criminal collaborator?
When it comes, well, hold on a second now. Now, this is interesting. This is a great point. This is a conversation I love to have. As a co-conspirator, simply because of involvement, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
The moment you put your hand up and swear your life away to the Department of Defense or Department of Justice.
But don't you swear to the Constitution?
You swear to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and unfortunately, you don't get to decide who that is. That's done by somebody else. So by simple involvement, you're a co-conspirator. I mean, if we're talking from a fundamental level, it's just the moment you join that organization, you are guilty by association.
I think there's still the Constitution is the supreme law, and it overrides any regulation or policy of these sub-organizations.
Sure.
And then the moral law of the conscience is the Constitution is based on that. So right. That's the real supreme law. And if they ask you to break the Constitution or break the moral law, just like if the Nazis asked you to go and fire an AK-47 at a line of Jews over a hole in the ground, then you're making a moral dilemma choice.
AK is Russian and Chinese, so I didn't.
Whatever they use.
MP40.
MP40.
So it's okay. So stop it. You're not ignorant.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Mm-hmm. I agree with you wholeheartedly, everything you're saying. In fact, I think we're just coming from two different sides and coming to the same spot. I don't believe that there is ever a reason to justify breaking the oath to the Constitution of the United States. Period.
I agree. But I think by them asking you to surveil Americans without a warrant, they're asking you to break the Constitution.
Yeah, but this is where the Patriot Act stops that. And this is my point with the Patriot Act, is that these are illegal, in my opinion, illegal pieces of legislation which are antithetical to the Constitution of the United States. And this is where the corruption happens, is that they have made it not against the Constitution.
Do you really believe they're only collecting the communications of international communications where keywords are present? I don't think so.
Because it's not, because that's not what the Patriot Act states. The Patriot Act states is that they can do multiple lines of delineation from their original source target through human, electronic, signal intelligence, however it is, based upon any association with targets that have been approved with a viable warrant. So here's an example. You have absolutely nothing to do with organized crime or world terrorism or domestic terrorism or anything else. However, I do. And I'm your third cousin.
Yeah.
The moment that is discovered and the warrant is issued on me, the Patriot Act covers you too. And anyone you associate with. And this is where the problem lied. See, it's not that Snowden was like, I have a problem with doing things that are illegal against the American public. He exposed what was happening and finally said, I've had enough.
Yeah.
When he originally came in, he was all about it. I mean, he lusted for more knowledge, like most guys in Intel are. They want more information. They collect it. They're purveyors of information. And he got to a point where he couldn't take a shower to get clean. And I know what that feels like. And a lot of Intel guys do. So once again, I am not a proponent of the Patriot Act. I am not a proponent of the Intelligence Act. I am not a proponent of spying on Americans in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But you have to understand also that there's an oath that we took. And as an intelligence professional, it's kind of the credo of what we do. And we skirt the lines of what is legal and illegal all the time.
Listen.
It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. But I will tell you that there are things that we have uncovered, and there has been plots that we have uncovered that without that, we wouldn't have found out. Does that make it right? I don't think so. But I think the result ultimately is that we've had done a lot of good and a whole lot of bad in the intel community. And here's the other thing. The intelligence community, I'm not defending, it has been an abysmal failure since Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And it has failed on multiple facets. It failed on the housing market crash. It failed on 9/11, Oklahoma City. You can go to every single major event that we've seen. And in the intelligence community has failed us, even from school shooters who had FBI investigations and open cases, and they were still let loose. So I guess my point being is that you can look at it through multiple lenses. It is illegal. I understand why Snowden did it. I think that the way that he did do it, there are some questions about if it was advantageous to him financially and the justification of why he did it. I would not use the word hero, but that's just me.
It just, to me, it's like they always sell us a bill of goods. We have to have this world war so that there's never a war ever again.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
We need we need a central bank in the United States to control all of our money and interest rates so that we'll never have a boom bust or a depression again when they then come in and create it.
Right.
We need to have secret police and spy agencies permanently. You know, before it was just during wartime. It was illegal to have that in the United States any other time. And then Truman made it legal and created it. So we've got to have secret police guys, or else what? The commies are going to get us? I don't know what the sales pitch was that back then.
Oh, it was Wild Bill Donovan in the Office of Strategic Services to go ahead and have a international spy agency like everyone else did.
So now we've got blackmail rings, child trafficking, drug trafficking, and they're surveilling everybody. Great.
Yeah, listen, there's a reason why I left the intelligence community, you know, and it wasn't because I went home every day and said, geez, it's awesome to be me.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to understand the level of intelligence that I was in.
Yeah, sure.
Is a little bit different than what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think most rank and file intelligence agents are there to serve the country.
Sure.
They're there to protect and serve.
Right.
And defend the homeland.
Sure.
I'm not questioning that at all. But I think the leadership at a lot of these agencies is thoroughly corrupt. And I think the number one thing the Obama administration did was get hardcore radical 60s leftists into the leadership of all these agencies.
Tapper, yes. Yeah. I mean, look at Strzok and Page. No, and this is where we're back to completely agreeing. It's interesting. Maybe sometime we could have you, Leroy, and I talk about Snowden. And I think we all come to the same conclusion. What he did needed to take place. And unfortunately, it didn't change a damn thing because all of those processes are still in place.
Yeah, which is shocking, it needs to be I think eventually it needs to, if we can get through.
Put that on the bingo. Put that on the bingo. Put that at the end. Put that on 06.
It's on there. Snowden files right there.
Where's it at? Snowden, not all the Snowden files, but we need to talk about the Patriot Act. Repeal the Patriot Act.
Oh, repeal that for sure.
Let's get rid of it. Right?
There's a few acts I'd like to repeal.
Oh, there are certainly a few acts. Tell everyone how they get your book, how they find you. We did this earlier, but let's do it again. We're going to wrap up here in the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's the Woke Mind Viruses, and they can get the print book or Kindle on Amazon, and they can find the audiobook that just launched on Audible or Apple Books.
TS, why are disagreements important?
Well, that's the whole experiment of self-government is about working through the situation and coming to the right conclusion through conversations. And so it's the dialogue. And the dialogue is at the center of the political process of freedom in Republican government. And that's why freedom of speech is the number one enumerated right in the Constitution.
Can you imagine if there was something that reinstated and installed value and honor back into our society? You told me something that just absolutely shocked me. Out of 45 different shows, we were the only one who read your book. How can you sit across from a human being who you haven't at least tried to understand and have an informative conversation? And this is why your book is so important to me. I believe it's the Rosetta Stone or the crib key into understanding the psyche of people. And this is what we talked about. You can't control people. You can't change somebody. Nobody has the power to change anyone. That has to come from internal reflection. But when you're talking about the psyche or the soul or the spiritual side of somebody, you get a glimpse of both in somebody's works, whether it be a podcast or a painting or a song or your book.
Yeah.
So if people read your book, what are they going to learn about you?
I think that that I value our country, I value our way of life, I value our children, and that the most important things to me, and I think the most important things to our country, our way of life, and our future are constitutionalism, capitalism, and Christianity. And these are Western values that need to be defended at all costs and preserved for the next generation, or we're going to end up in a situation that we're not going to like very much.
Yeah. Are we there already?
No, I don't think we're there yet.
What is the catalyst? I mean, the final point is you've talked about the various steps and the phases. What's the catalyst? What is going to make this either sink or swim? What's our Titanic moment? Is this a bilge failure, or is this going to be where we make it to harbor and can unload?
Well, typically it's a massive election, one party into power that then is so corrupt they've finished the job of completely corrupting the systems of government and the elections, creating then a one-party state, or a virtually one-party state. That's typically how the leftists fully come into power. It's also typically inspired by or coincides with a massive crisis. Crises can look like different things. It could be a huge pandemic, worse than what we saw in COVID. It could be a
attack or
giant attack, a giant war. It could be a massive economic collapse. It could be a massive technology failure, like a cyber attack or an EMP that wipes out our grid.
Right.
Sends us back 50 years and, as far as electronics and modern convenience, communications. So it can look like different things, but there is a catalyzing moment when you bring in the full revolution. And, America is the leader of the West. Freedom was born here, and then it spread to these other countries. There's, depending on the count, there's 190 to 210 countries in the world.
Right.
And they say, 119, 120 of them have roughly some semblance of constitutional government. It's really mainly like 60 or so.
Sure. That actually fallen. China has a constitution, by the way.
Yeah.
And they have a freedom of speech clause in the constitution.
Sure, I'm sure they do.
And they don't follow it.
They're big human rights.
Huge. I mean,
big on
just ask
rights.
the Uyghurs. They know.
Yeah, they're living proof. So
I'm sure the Tibetans agree.
So that's how it can come. And so they weaken you and demoralize you. And we've been going through 80 years of demoralization.
Oh, yeah.
And demoralization is done through the media, the education system, and the arts. And it looks like two different things. On the left, the demoralized is mainly just total indoctrination. They're totally indoctrinated. They can't perceive a different reality than the talking points of their ideology. That's how they're demoralized. But on the right, it has the opposite effect. On the right, it convinces us that there is no hope. It's futile. Just give up, live your life, don't participate, don't get involved.
Right.
It's not worth it. Just give up. And like these guys are giving up on marriage and families, and these women that are just giving up on ever having a husband, ever having kids, it's just give up, right? That's the demoralization effect on the opposite side. And we can't, you got to fight that. You have to resist that. We must participate, And that's why I felt compelled. My wife kept telling me, you got to do something, either do a vlog or do something or write a book. And finally, when, what pushed me over the line was when she became pregnant with our first kid. And I go, I've got to use what I know. I've got to use this.
Sure.
I've got to do something with it.
Right.
Are there risks associated with that? Yeah, it's risky. Yeah, these people play for keeps. These are rough people.
Yeah.
But if, like I said before, if a certain number of men and women that know the right thing don't stand up and do something about it to preserve our way of life, then we essentially forfeit it.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
I want the listeners to know that TS came out here, flew from his home state of Florida on a finger. Was it written a check or promised luxury and a BMW, came out on his own dime, and he's going to have one hell of a dinner paid for by me. But and to simply speak with us, and not interested in necessarily selling a ton of books or anything else. But I want to say thank you, man. I consider you a friend, and I've spent enough time next to you to understand the quality of your character. I know we probably agree on about 98% of the things in life, and that 2% is where we should spend our most time, because you learn about people, you learn about their idiosyncrasies and their nuance, and we don't spend enough time doing that with people. So I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for coming to my home.
Thank you for having me. You have a beautiful studio here. Congratulations on the new studio.
Yeah, man. You had a huge part. You were part of the show. Thank you so much, brother. We will see you at TS Dixon. TS, give them the website again.
It's tsdixon.com, and I promise I'm eventually going to start using social media. So in a few weeks, you might be able to find me at real TS Dixon on some of these platforms.
Let's get that done, and we'll make sure that we share some stuff. I want you to have a chance to come back. I want you to meet Damani Felder. I want you to meet some of the people who we've built relationships with. Go and buy the audiobook. Go and buy the digital copy. I bought the Kindle today because I wanted to have it digitally. And you can also pick up the book on Amazon. You can also pick it up at The Dumb Show if you want to go to thedumbshow.com. Thanks for staying with us. We're going to have him back at 7 o'clock tonight, 6 o'clock tonight, actually.
Yep.
Up until 9. He's leaving at 7. So thank you, TS, and appreciate you being here today on The Dumb Show. All right, everybody.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, and Olivia. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.